Hello, hello. Thank y'all for joining me today. I do want to do a sound check because I'm doing something a little different. This will be my very first video, live or upload, that I've ever done with my studio door open. This allows the air conditioning from the rest of the building to get in here. However, it does affect my audio integrity. So let me know if you guys can hear. Sound is great. Awesome. You may hear some dogs. I got a fifth dog now. Don't know how that happened. But you might hear some dogs from time to time. I slowed down the chat. I hope you guys don't get ticked. I did get a few emails from some people who were pretty ticked off. And I got some other emails of people who were silently monitoring the chat, telling me that in their opinion, the emails were out of line and they should have been deleted. So it all comes to, a matter of opinion. First of all, we don't live in a free speech world. So don't come to my platform thinking that you have 100% right to free speech. You don't. As a matter of fact, I have 19 different words in my YouTube studio settings that if you say any of these words, your comment is automatically not approved. It's deleted. I'm doing that to protect my channel. I will be adding to those words because you guys got to understand, we are heavily censored. I'm not talking about Archaics. Archaics isn't even on YouTube. Well, it might be on YouTube's map now. My analytics are off the chart. And when I say that, I'm speaking from the perspective of only having 30,000 subscribers. To some of you, that's a lot. But I've reviewed some, 200, 300, 400,000 subscribers. But it's you have to understand, it's not just video content that gets you censored by YouTube or triggers the basically the editing algorithms that they have to weed out potentially hazardous or dangerous conversations. There are several. The chat is monitored as well. So yeah, this is why a lot of guys' YouTube channels had nothing to do. There are people who have 250,000 subscribers and they're talking about some pretty deep stuff and they're naming names. And you can go all over YouTube and find these type of channels. They're not getting deleted. There are other reasons why they're getting deleted. And yeah, some of them do get too close to the truth. But when we say too close to the truth, that too must be tempered with some perspective. There are universal truths for which YouTube doesn't give a damn about. But then there are personal truths. These involve pronouns of people living and in power today. Yeah, sometimes they're going to be sensitive. They're going to get sensitive and they're going to go ahead and delete those videos or give warnings and give strikes. But the deeper truths that Archaics addresses, yeah, there's no reason to censor this material. As a matter of fact, it's in YouTube's best interest not to censor this channel because I'll just migrate. With 100% of my content all backed up, I'll just migrate to another platform for which they will have no ability to monitor anymore. So it really doesn't matter to me. YouTube makes it easy, but I'm not going to die if Archaics disappears off the platform. It'll take me a week at most to migrate to another platform. Hell, might even find out I like it somewhere else even better, especially when I'm not having to muzzle my mouth. So I'm saying all that to you guys that get triggered and you send me emails because you're pissed off that somebody deleted you. Well, you might have been deleted by one of my 19 trigger words, and it's going to go up. There's a few more words on my list. I just haven't gone on my settings. I need to go in there because some of you guys are leaving remarks in the chat that have absolutely nothing to do with the Archaics research. I don't care about what these other channels are putting out. I don't care about none of that stuff. It has nothing to do with my output or my research. Modern day conspiracies that are so popular and some of these key trigger words that are used in that subject matter doesn't have anything to do with what I'm putting out. So I don't want to see those words in the chat. Some of you know what I'm talking about because some of you are very mature. And when you say those words and I call you on it, you immediately apologize and take your comment down. And I really appreciate that maturity. Crypto Jack, thank you, man. Listen, well, we got some deep stuff to talk to about today. We have a lot of new subscribers, but I promise you, this video is not going to bore my old veterans. My veterans that have been with me for 3 years, 2.5 years, 2 years, who have reviewed every single Phoenix video and the ancillary videos that go with the Phoenix data. This video is not going to bore you. You're going to be able to put a lot of your knowledge on the Phoenix into proper perspective, because I was recently able to do that. And so I tried to print up some really interesting Phoenix charts this morning on my printer. Let's see if y'all how good y'all can see that. All these charts are available. These are just little charts I'm going to go by. You don't have to follow them, but like this chart here, where I was showing that it only takes 200 years. It only takes 200 years. However many resets we suffer, it only takes the human race 200 years to bounce back from horse and buggy to Hadron Collider. And have we done it? Absolutely. Many people like Jonathan Gray, David Hatcher Childress, Harold T. Wilkins, Hans Bellamy, even some Immanuel Velikovsky, they've shown ample evidence to show that we have been technologically advanced, not once, twice, maybe 3 or 4 times in the past, and maybe not even in the distant past. But today we're going to go deep. This is the Phoenix chart, but it's definitely lacking a lot of new data. This is a very old illustration that shows what happens in a Phoenix phenomenon. It has a legend on the side. And for those of you who are behind and don't know, there's 2 ways to get my charts. One, you can buy them from Gumroad. I make them pretty cheap. I have all 350 charts, but they're all in 3 different chart packs. 300 of them are in 1 chart pack. Then I have highly specialized color charts you can blow up to posters and other ones. Another way is you can send me an email, because I give charts away for free all the time. So yeah, we'll review that later on too. Here's another one. This was intended on being a poster, and I want to redo this. You can see it on my wall back here, but I want to redo this because I have like 5 new Phoenix phenomenon dates now to add to this. But basically it's a summary of why I believe we live in a simulated holography. And of course, here's 4 different timekeeping systems, all documented for the very first time in history in the Archaeix venue. Everything is supported by data points and multiple data sets. This huge chart, this little small version is just an oversimplification, but it just basically shows you that we're in the year 5916 right now, and this can be shown by multiple different vantage points. So I have some interest from an Australian editor and from a producer of documentaries in the UK right now, and my publisher's on board as well. I'm about to put together the Phoenix thesis, which I needed to do. And it's going to be very scientific. It's going to bore some people, but I have to present the Phoenix thesis in a bullet point presentation showing how data points create unbreakable data sets. One of those data sets is what we're going to begin this video with. And for those of you new to my channel, the Archaeix research is the only place in the world you will ever hear what's going to be in this video today. So, yeah, here's another designed to be a poster, huge, showing different cycles and what happened in world history and timelines, calendars, but my printer cut off the last inch and made it really look weird. Yeah, so I mean, here's another Phoenix deal showing the Vapor Canopy intact. The 1656 years of the pre-flood world, Vapor Canopy. Now these are just, like I said, these are oversimplifications, are small. They're really no good for anything but just reminders for me. But yeah, in the links below in the description box, I went ahead for this video and put my full catalog, all my published books, unpublished books, all the chart packs. I now have help with the thumb drives. So most of you have switched over to Podia, and you're just downloading all the Phoenix videos and all the Anunnaki videos in single downloads to your computers, laptops, devices, tablets, whatever. And that's working well for a lot of you, but I'm still getting some requests for the actual thumb drive with all that. And now that I have some help, also some help with the post office. I went to the post office and talked to them about a better way to simplify my mailing so it's not taking so much of my time out. The only 2 countries in the world that I will not mail anything international to is Iran and New Zealand. And this is not because of me. One, New Zealand, I don't know what's going on with New Zealand, but to mail just a simple, tiny little flash drive, a simple, tiny little flash drive like this, not counting the packaging and not counting the cost of the flash drive to me, I can't mail anything to New Zealand less than $71.50. So I'm done with New Zealand. New Zealand's cost me too much money, and I'm just not. And I feel really bad about charging people in New Zealand double. That's why I did Podia. If you really want all the videos in the order that you're supposed to watch them ad free, and you want a record of them in case my channel does ever go down, just get them off Podia. Just download them off Podia. So, having said that, you guys know once I start, I'm gonna go full tilt on this first data set I'm gonna show you. So let me look at my comments real quick and do one final audio check. Thank you guys for participating. I don't know if that helps you for me to release 24 hours in advance that I'm going to do a video, a live presentation. I hope that's helping you coordinate your schedules. I started doing that 2 videos ago. It seems to be working. Thank you for reminding me about the coffee. I did need that. And yes, thank you, Mish Gleason. Mish, you've been with me so long. You need to really remind me after the video. Send me a message. Hi, Monica Farrell, so I can make you a moderator. You have a lot of participation. I didn't mean to leave anybody out. I just didn't know. I had so much going on, and I had contacted several people for help, and I made them moderators. But it's always good to have more moderators because everybody has divergent schedules. All right. Yes. Keep them in CC Garland. That's a new name to me. Thank you, man. Thank you. You're gonna hear some good shit today. I promise you. Jason, are you aware that we don't see any visual intro? We see you with intro audio. Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware that you're looking at me if I'm in my studio or not. You're looking in here while I'm playing the intro music. I'm aware. I'm still tech retarded, and I don't really. I tried to upload an intro on a live video before, and you guys told me y'all didn't see anything, so I just gave up. I'm not. It's not that important to me. Let's see. I know y'all see my intros on my uploads because I fully edit all the uploads before I send them. And you guys have some uploads on the way. And one thing that has stopped me and slowed me down, the reason I've been doing so many lives is predictions videos, man. They stop me. That's why I quit doing them for a while. I'm doing the UK and Israel right now. I'm looking into Ukraine, Russia, Dominican Republic. Some of the ones I've already done. Thailand. I'm looking into United States, of course. I'm looking into all of them again, and the ones that were Romania, the Balkans area. I'm just curious. It seems to me that I'm able to see with better clarity the wider scope that I look into instead of compartmentalizing into such a small region. So yeah, I'm also working with somebody who is pulling out sound bites. Because I have an entire predictions playlist, hundreds of predictions. Many of them have come true. Others are presently unfolding. So I'm not scared to be wrong because, I mean, in predictive analytics, there's no way to be 100% accurate. But the accuracies are so uncanny, the parallels. Hell, other people are starting YouTube channels showing isometric projections now, and it's just unreal. We live in a simulated context. And for those who get triggered by simulation, you need to know. You can divorce yourself from 100% of the idea that you live in a simulation, and it doesn't change the output of archaics at all. Simulation theory is a personal conclusion of mine that answers for all the data sets because I can't answer for them. Many of you have watched the Phoenix and the Enuma files, and a lot of you are really in love with the We Immortals playlist, and I get that. But I have a huge playlist, and I can see in the analytics it's being ignored. I don't know why. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I'm thinking about bringing some of these back on board, but changing them up a little bit, and taking a lot of my older videos and representing them in just better, not just better graphics, but better presentation. But I have a whole playlist with a lot of videos in it. It's called Archaics, Gems, and Enigmas. Those videos are my evidence. Those videos contain all the evidence to me that we're living in a simulation. But those videos don't require a belief that we live in a construct, some type of simulated holography. They don't require that at all. That's why they're gems and enigmas. These are inexplicable. I am documenting phenomena that we have recorded, data points and data sets all throughout history, and I'm citing the sources. These you need to see to understand, look, we live in a very mysterious medium. This isn't normal. These things are not supposed to be happening. That playlist is very ignored. It's called Gems and Enigmas. I might have to mix that playlist up or something. But I do pay attention to my analytics, and I see that it's basically my last 20 videos that 80% of my subscribers are watching, or viewers are watching. That's a problem for me. That's a problem for me because it makes me have to readdress and re-explain things that I thought were already pretty much well known by everybody who listens in the past. So that is a problem for me. I'm going to find ways to address it. It falls on me, not on you. There's thousands of channels you guys could be watching. I'm privileged that you're watching mine, but it tells me that I need to better present the information, and I'm going to. What I plan on doing is taking a lot of these older videos that are similar in nature and taking all the best material from them and doing one single presentation and bringing them back to the forefront. So anything, I mean, everything could be done. Everything could be done better. There's no doubt. All right. That dude's name kills me every time I see it. IRS media website. Man, I don't want to talk to the IRS. Let's see. All right, let's get down to it. Let's get down. Old expression in my neck of the woods. There's a tater in them onions. That's what we're going to discuss today, because there's a tater in these onions. Something just don't belong, but it is. It is. So we have to address it. So let's in prior presentations, I have told you guys a few times that long ago, like maybe almost a decade ago, I had, or wow, 12, 13 years ago, my publisher sent me some information. I was in prison. My publisher sent me information about a Dr. Barry Wormkessel and his research on an object, intramercurial object in our system that astronomers have been studying for the past 250 years. Now, I have a scientific book back here that goes into a lot of these. And I'm going to do a video very soon on Vulcan, because it's a mystery object that the scientific community was keeping away from the public. It's something that comes very close to us, and things happen in our world. And I'm working on all kinds of things on the 1800s to show you the relationship between Vulcan and what was going on. But they call it Vulcan. I don't believe that that's what it is. But Dr. Barry Wormkessel had published a lot of material about this, and he was very standoffish with me. I had sent him a tremendous amount of data on my Phoenix research, because in his own research, he cites that there is a 4968-year cycle that he has detected of objects that enter our solar system and do terrible things to our world, our planet, whatever your paradigm is, and then it leaves. So at the time, I wasn't on board with the idea that we're living underneath a multi-tiered hologram of the sky. At the time, I believed in the Newtonian, I believed in the basically the heliocentric model. Earth was going around the sun. When I contacted Barry, I no longer believe that. Now, don't categorize me as a flat earther as well, because I have problems with that. I believe flat Earth is a stepping stone. It's not a destination. We are specifically intended by something greater than we are to make the discoveries that we make. And we do. But once you fully come to the realization about all the tenets and all the possible scenarios that could account for a domed world on a flat plane, it leads you to other conclusions that you must follow. If you don't, you're stuck. You're stuck in the very world that you have discovered. So I have moved on from that. I never really was a flat earther. I just read Eric Dubai, and that led me to Zetetic astronomy. And I read that, and I agreed with 100% of its tenets. It was just astonishing what I read in that work. And to find it was over 130 years ago, it just blew my mind. So that led me to Gleason. I don't know, somewhere on this bookshelf, right there. This is Gleason's book from the 1890s, showing all the scientific experiments that were conducted to show that we lived on a fixed world that is unmoving. So, having said all that, Dr. Barry Wormkessel very politely declined any collaboration between the two of us. And I understand, I was a prisoner at the time. He should have looked at the data. Supported mine didn't really support this. So the 49-68 year cycle is very interesting. It is a data point, but in and of itself it means nothing, and it will continue until you review the rest of these data points and see where I'm going with this. So we have a scientist that documented a 4,968 year cycle attached to destructions on our world. Remember that. Now, 16 centuries ago was a historian named Censorinus. Censorinus wrote, he was basically a preservationist of older belief systems and texts. He was a lot like Pliny the Elder, who had recorded hundreds of earlier authors and writers and in his natural history and other books that we no longer have today. But Censorinus, he had his take was pretty interesting because he wrote about Aristarchus of Samos, who had visited the Alexandrian library and had access to astronomical and historical records that we do not have today. You all know the story of the Alexandrian library and how Alexander of Macedon had amassed this tremendous, vast wealth of libraries. They had emptied out the old and ancient libraries of Babylon, Nineveh, Nimrud, the old Sumerian, Akkadian. Everything was translated back into Macedonian, into Greek. The Ionian libraries. There was even the ancient Pergamum library, which was huge, way before the Alexandrian, and it was emptied and sent to Alexandria as well. And these scholars like Eratosthenes and Aristarchus, they had access to a wealth of historical and astronomical information. So we come across a second data point. That data point is that Aristarchus of Samos, he wrote that the world was basically suffering a cycle of destruction every 2484 years. That should stand out to every historian and scientist who reviews these type of materials, because he didn't say 24 centuries. He didn't say 25 centuries. He was detail specific to the number 2484. This cannot be ignored. It's a second data point. So it involves destructions, and it is the result of a knowledge that was acquired from older sources. This was Censorinus 17 centuries ago, but he is quoting Aristarchus, who lived 500 years before him. Aristarchus is admitting that his material is coming from even older materials. This is our second data point. Two very highly specific numbers concerning cataclysms in our world. Now, I have often told you guys about Archbishop James Ussher, 1658. You know what? Here's his book, The Annals of the World, right here. Annals of the World, Archbishop James Ussher. This was published in 1658. This is a very old book. He is a chronologist. Unfortunately, a lot of his material is mathematically in error, in wrong, because 350 years away. So I have corrected many of his mistakes in my chronicon, but where he didn't make a mistake, where he had trouble reconciling, was he had trouble dating things on the Anno Domini and the Gregorian and Julian dating. What he didn't have any problem with was the unbroken and very easy to calculate Annus Mundi system. That calendar is unbroken and goes back thousands of years. So he was able to date a great massive destruction known to the ancient world as the Ogygian Deluge. The Ogygian Flood was way after the Great Flood that we're all familiar with. The flood of Noah, the biblical flood, the collapse of the Vapor Canopy, the day the sky fell. This was after all that. It was during the Old Bronze Age, though. It started the Middle Bronze Age. Total civilization collapse. We'll get to that in a minute. But he was able to date that precisely to the year 2208 Annus Mundi, not the 22nd century Annus Mundi. Again, here is a very date-specific number. 2208 years. Annus Mundi was the date, according to him, that the whole world was destroyed. And this was after the flood. So this is our third data point. It's from a chronologist who admits that his material came from older sources. So we have a modern chronologist as well who found the exact same information, and we're not going to include this as another data point. It's only supporting the first. But Stephen Jones, in his book, The Secrets of Time, in the 1990s or 1980s, a fantastic book. Hundreds. No, I'm lying. I'm lying to you. It has thousands of dates throughout and shows exactly how those dates were derived. Okay, in the back of Stephen Jones' book is a world chronology showing what his calculations are. Basically, year one of the ancient world started year one of the pre-flood world, which was year one of the Annus Mundi calendar. He shows this in a 6-page chronological chart using the Assyrian eponyms, the Book of Jubilees, the Book of Jasher, which has hundreds of chronomarkers in it, the Book of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, and some small other historical references. But he puts together this fantastic chronology of the world and shows that year one is 3895 BC. Many of my veterans to this channel know that date. You've seen it in the Great Pyramid multiple times. You've seen it in historical texts, date monuments, stele, stelae, temple walls. I've shown it everywhere. It's the date. It's the date of something that was so horrific and harrowing that happened to our world that the survivors actually believed a new creation had occurred, a new heavens and a new earth. It is year one of the Vapor Canopy. Anyway, Stephen Jones, in his own chronology right there that I just showed you, dates the destruction of the ancient world way after the Great Flood. He dates it in 2208 Annus Mundi. The same thing Usher did, but he's using totally different source materials. Usher cites Marcus Varro, a Roman historian, and several others. And Marcus Varro cites about 11 other historians like Hestefaeus, and there's so many different ones. This video is not, I'm not going to get detail specific and all that. That's not what this video is about. You can read When the Sun Darkens about the Phoenix, or Nostradamus and the Planets of Apocalypse if you want the source materials and data specific material. I got these books out because they're all going to be relevant to this video. Or my huge book, Shocking Secrets of Antiquity, I have all this Phoenix data in here as well. So, but I need in this video for you guys to understand why data sets are important and how you build them. Because so far what I've given you is just 2 data points, not a data set. These 2 data points happen to be confirmed many times by other sources, and that's okay, but that doesn't increase data points. The data points here are 3968 year period involving destructions, a 2484 year period involving destructions. Oh, and this third data point is a 2208 year period, 2208 year period involving world destructions. That's 3 data points. However many sources that cite those numbers don't increase the data points. All they do is support them. We have to be very, very specific when we are cataloging our facts, talking about a subject as complex as the Phoenix. Because even my veteran listeners on this channel, you have basically just taken a lot of the things I've said at face value. I know a lot of you have not read the books, have not looked at the actual sources, done the arithmetic yourself. You just agree with the presentations because they make sense. And that's okay. Not everybody's built for this type of material. Not everybody really gets off on history and chronology like I do. But I'm starting to attract the necessary attention by which I have to do this. So I'm going to do it with you guys. I'm not going to just do it in a little report and then send it off to the people that want it. I'm going to do it in visual presentation as well. So this is 3 data points. Let's move on to the 4th and see what we see. So after Archbishop James Usher, Archbishop James, Ogygian Deluge, 2208 a.m., Annus Mundi. Let's see. Let me look at my, I have a bullet point presentation on my computer. Let me see. I don't want to mess anything up. This isn't anything that we can really screw up here. So the Inca, there was a historian, a Spanish historian. Actually, he was half Native American. I think it was Incan, maybe Quechua. I'm not really sure. Some of you know who I'm talking about. He had left a book about 350 years ago. His name was Montesinos. And Montesinos left a history of the record of the Inca. He had lived and talked among them. He was half Inca or half Quechua or something. I can't remember. He was half-blooded Spanish, educated by the Spanish, respected as a historian, and he left us a record. In 1624, his book and his historical record was finished, but we have a very interesting deal. The Inca believed that they had come out of a great darkness in the ancient past. The Inca had records of these cataclysms and destructions, and that they were the survivors. But what's really tantalizing here is the Inca provide a very specific number for the beginning of their nation. It was 2070 years. It was 2070 years. This is too precise. It wasn't 2,000 years or over 2,000 years or under 21 centuries like many historical records basically elucidate when they don't have specifics. The Inca had specifics, and they gave it to Montesinos. They regarded this number as very important. 2,070 years. That's a data point. Now, so we have the next data point, which is not one I want to review very long because it's probably mentioned in 80 of my videos already, and it's the fact that the pre-flood world was 1656 years. From the beginning of the Vapor Canopy world that Genesis describes as the antediluvian period, the pre-flood world, we have 1,656 years that 10 patriarchs lived, and that's the number you get when you add up all their life-death cycles in the book of Genesis. This isn't me telling you this. This goes all the way back to Flavius Josephus, Philo Alexandrinus, Rashi. 1,000 years ago, Rashi published that the pre-flood world was 1656 years. This isn't me. There are many. There are so many. And like I said, I'm not going to go through all the data here. You have to see it. Some of my videos will give you as many as 10 different sources in history who all claim that the pre-flood world was that number. That is also too specific. It wasn't 16 centuries and it wasn't 17 centuries. It wasn't 1,650 years approximate. This is a very specific number from ancient texts, 1,656. That's a data point. Now, a coincidence is that Archbishop James Ussher, who basically provided a chronology of the entire world, who dated earlier, I told you, the world destruction in the year 2208 Annus Mundi, the author of this book, and whose chronology appeared in about 5 million Bibles over 300 years, this man, he died in the modern calendar Anno Domini in the year, after writing about the flood, he died in the year 1656. That's pretty interesting. But it's just a coincidence. So let's move on. Rashi, when Rashi was talking about the year 1656, he was even more specific than just the number. Rashi, over 1,000 years ago, wrote that the world suffers a 16, excuse me, I don't want to misquote Rashi. Rashi said that 1,656 years is the time between two cataclysms. That's a data point. So Rashi was Jewish, and so was Nostradamus. The famous French prophet Michel el Nostradam was actually Jewish, and many Jews of the time period had concealed their identities. And like Christophe Colon. Christophe Colon was 100% Jewish. You know him in the history books as Christopher Columbus. So this French Jewish prophet Nostradamus that I have written a book about, Nostradamus and the Plans of Apocalypse, this guy here, again, you know the centuries, the prophecies of Nostradamus, but what you probably don't know is that Nostradamus had written a private letter, and his private letters to his son Caesar and to some Spanish king or French king, I can't remember. If I was to go through here, I could probably find it real fast. I just can't remember what it was. But Nostradamus had written somebody, and I don't want to get bogged down in details. That's not what this is about. I just don't know exactly. My books have a lot of data. There's a lot of data printed on each page, so it's really hard for me to find. Nostradamus had wrote in a personal letter, and it was published by scholars about 40 years ago. In that letter, it specifically says that the period of time between Adam and Noah was 1,242 years. Again, too specific. There is nowhere in Genesis do you find a 1,242 year period. Nostradamus, his hidden letters also revealed a knowledge about the phoenix in the year 1902 and 1903. He mentions the phoenix, how the phoenix is going to return again. Nostradamus' quatrains were codified, and I show this in my videos, I show this in my published books. Who translated and discovered this date index? Because it's real, and it totally supports the phoenix timeline. But Nostradamus also encoded in his quatrains the actual number of years that's between every phoenix visitation. And I've shown this in my videos as well. Nostradamus was a genius. So, a very old book, absolutely packed with historical material from the year 1900. The scholar Alexander Delmar. The book is called The Worship of Augustus Caesar. In that book, we learn of a few things that we blew my mind when I saw them. But the evidence is in that book that the Roman Catholic Church completely hid one of the worst and most recent Phoenix reset cataclysms. And it was so devastating that, unlike other historical events, they couldn't be scrubbed from the history books, like 1902, much of the stuff that happened in 1902. They couldn't be scrubbed from the history books. It was too well documented in archaeology and different historical and different cultures in 522. So what they did is they invented a Justinian period, and they spread all these events out over a 20-year period that all actually happened in the single year of 522 AD. And then they collapsed the older Buddhic calendar of 552-year Phoenix cycles, collapsed it, hit it, created a 532-year cycle backdated it to say that Jesus was born in 2 BC and started the Anno Domini calendar. They did all these things just to hide this Phoenix reset. The Anno Domini calendar that we are on right now today is the result of this deception. I have an entire video of it showing all the sources and all the data of how this was done by the papacy. So I can't remember the title of the video. A lot of you have seen it and sent me emails about it. The current calendar we are on today, Anno Domini, was created by the Roman Catholic Church to hide the Phoenix calendar that we're discussing right now in data points. The Phoenix calendar has not been used since then, but it was known in Rome, it was known in Greece, it was known in Ionia, in northern Africa, Libya, and Egypt. It was known in ancient Palestine among the Phoenicians, the Philistines, the Israelites. It was known all the way back to Babylonian times. The Phoenix has been predicted many times, and I have shown that. But let's move on. Our next data point. So Alexander Del Mar shows that one of the dominant historical periods, it was called the Boudic calendar. And in the Boudic calendar was based off of cycles that were exactly 552 years. That's specific as hell. Didn't say 550. Now, old Roman or Greek, I can't remember, maybe it was Ovid. Somebody from the ancient world said that the Phoenix cycle was 550 years. Others speculated it was 500 years. The reason is because they lived in a post-reset period where the older Phoenix technical information had been lost. But anyway, the old Phoenix calendar was 552 years. It was covered up by the papacy. This is a data point. It's too specific. 552. So we've been through all these data points. We'll do a little recap just real quick. But we're going to return to Stephen Jones real quick, who had documented the world was destroyed, or there was a great destruction in Canaan and Phoenicia and ancient Israel, documented in the book of Jasher, and he dates it exactly 2208 Annus Mundi, the same number that is provided by Archbishop James Ussher for the Ogygian Deluge, that he got the information from Marcus Varro, and Marcus Varro got his information from about 11 other historians that Varro cites. So we have two different chains of evidence converging for that date, and Stephen Jones, this biblical chronologist that I have found so fascinating that his dates perfectly line up with all my Phoenix dates, and yet he is coming from a totally different perspective chronologically than I am. My evidence is so different than his. But he documents in his book, The Secrets of Time, that he shows almost 100 different historical events that were all similar in nature, that were all separated by a 414-year cycle. That too, my friends, is what? Too specific. Not 400 years, 414 years. That we need to pay attention to. So I read his book, I went through it, and I saw he's absolutely right. Now, I took it a step further. In this book, I provide an entire chapter not citing anything in his book, just to show, because my historical research is far transcends Stephen Jones. Stephen Jones was interested in dating all the events of the Bible using all the sources he could, and he did a fantastic job. I, on the other hand, wanted to include the entire world, not just the biblical world. So in doing that, I'll just show you the table of contents. That would be Chapter 5 starts on page 41, right here. This is my table of contents for When the Sun Darkens. Chapter 5, Cursed Earth Period. Chapter 6, more Cursed Earth Periods. I document way over 100 that he didn't even provide, showing that he's correct. There is a 414-year cycle, and it is specifically attached to curses. So, yeah, that was very interesting. I wanted to show you guys that because that's a data point. 414 years. It's 100% is a data point. So So what does all this mean? Because I know just like me, you guys are not able to just memorize all these numbers and then put them into proper context, because I haven't even given you the historical materials yet by which you could put these together. So we have just received 9 numbers from historical records that they're not approximates. They're very specific. And they all concern destructions or negative connotations like curses. So resets, cycles of the world, and ancient calendars. These numbers are not arbitrary. They belie a knowledge that we have forgotten. So what are they? 4968, 2760, 2484, 2208, 2070, 1656, 1242, 552, 414. Now, we have to put this in perspective. These are all from different continents, different cultures, different time periods, taken from texts written in different languages. This series of numbers should not be cohesive. This series of numbers taken from all over the world at different time periods should not in any way go together. They shouldn't. We are so far beyond any probability ratios that would make any sense to us when we consider the following fact. This is beyond coincidence. Every single one of these from the ancient and modern world are divisible by the number 138. 138 years is also 1656 months. But that's not where it gets really weird. Every one of these numbers represented for the cultures that recorded them destructions of their race, destructions of their civilizations, destructions of their world. So what is happening here? Every number divisible by 138, that begs us to search the number 138. What do we see? My veterans know. You guys know because I have mentioned this. In the Moravian mythos, you guys have heard of the Moravian kings, the pre-Franc, pre-French culture. Very mysterious people. They came by way of Palestine, from Mycenae, from Crete. These are old world culture that was transplanted into what we know of as France today. In the Moravian mythos, we have a record where these people recorded a Jewish legend. In that Jewish legend, it claims that there was a group of angels that had been cursed by God because they forewarned the people of Sodom and Gomorrah of the destruction that was coming. They had warned Lot and his family. Because they had disobeyed the Godhead, this group of angels was cursed and banished from heaven for 138 years, the time between 2 destructions. So, you just can't make this stuff up. My books and in my videos cite all the sources for the data set, the data points that I just gave you. So many. Here are 10 independent mathematical facts that can all be verified from different time periods, different languages, different cultures, different continents. And yet, these 10 form one perfect data set. But this data set doesn't stand alone, because now that data set can be linearly projected forward and backward in time through history to be verified, to show why there was a belief in 4968 years, to show why there was a fear of 2484 years, to show exactly what is meant by the Inca that their calendar began 2070 years before, to understand why the Maya recorded a period of 2760 years, to understand fully what Nostradamus is trying to tell us about 1242 years. Now we get it. We understand what the historical record is conveying, that the Vapor Canopy world, the pre-flood antediluvian period, was specifically 1656 years. linearly, we can see all with perfect mathematical precision. We can see these 552-year cycles all through history and what they mean. We understand that this is no longer arbitrary, that the ancients were in possession of a calendar system that looked like this. We understand the 1656-year periods. We understand the 552-year periods. We understand that these were all divisible by 414-year periods, but the smaller unit of measurement is that this period is actually 138 years, because 138 times 3 is 414. 138 times 4 is 552. 3 552-year cycles make 1656 years. 4 414-year cycles make 1656 years. When you get to 1656 Annus Mundi, the year of the flood, you just add 552 years of Phoenix cycle and you get to 2208 Annus Mundi, which was the year 1687 BC, the Ogygian Deluge. The chronologies and the calendars that we have recorded today all fit perfectly together by this one discovery of the 138-year revisitation of the Phoenix phenomenon. And that's what we're going to get into right now, as soon as I put some water in my mouth and look at these comments. All right, where's my water bottle at? Let's see what you guys are commenting about, since I've been running my mouth so much. All right. Yes, Phoenix is a benefactor protocol. It's all a matter of perspective. Depends on how you've been living and what your take on reality is really about. I'm going to show you some more evidence of that. John Therese, please don't mention John Voight to me. I have a video explaining John Voight, why his information isn't like my information. I don't want to get back into that. I do have a John Voight video. I'm disappointed with the Die-Hold Foundation, and I show you why. And when you watch the video, you'll understand, and you'll probably agree with me. Let's see. All right. Thank you, Christine. I see you in there. 845 people on, 472 likes. I know it's easy to forget, guys. Please smash that like button. Please smash that like button for me. If you think I'm helping you out, please help me out in return. There's a lot of activity in the chat. Appreciate that. Thank you, Volley. Not found, huh? 404, not found. Oh, message retracted. All righty. Let's get into this a little bit. I do have a mailing address. In fact, a few people have sent me books. Somebody sent me some coffee. Somebody sent me something from my mouth, my jaw, some type of tool. I don't remember what it was. I think she was trying to tell me talk too much. I don't know what it was. But she did send me some awesome sunglasses. Let's see. The Truth Post. I'll entertain that question real quick. In the time of Noah, how advanced was civilization? Okay, we're gonna need to break that down a little bit. I don't believe Noah lived for 600 years. All right, I believe, and I show this in my Enuma files, where the 600 years comes from. It was an ancient calendar system. Now, if we go by the biblical chronology, at the birth of Noah, 2839 BC, we have a very technologically advanced civilization at play. Built the Great Pyramid, built Giza. They were ruling over the Sumerian Pentapolis. At the time, Larak and Shuruppak were the cities that ascendant. There may have been some type of dynastic struggle going on at the time. We have the beginning of what is referred to as the Nephilim dynasty. Yeah, it's very technologically advanced at that time. Then we have the basically 26 2647 BC starts a period that is referred to in Near Eastern and in Ancient American. It was basically a dark age, not a dark age caused by cataclysm, though. It was a dark age because the benefactors of civilization vanished. They left. After the Great Pyramid Complex was built and done, in the historical record, the Enuna vanished as a collective. However, there were ruling factions of the Enuna who stayed with normal humans on the surface as basically the nobility, and they rode out the Great Flood destruction with them. The reason they had done that is because of intermarriage. There was a faction of the Enuna that, now at this time period that I'm talking about, they weren't called Anunnaki. That is a later Babylonian corruption. As a matter of fact, almost everything from Babylon and Akkad written about the Enuna is wrong. It's propaganda. So the original Enuna were benefactors. They built a fantastic infrastructure, and we're gonna get into a little bit of that right here. But yes, they were technologically advanced in the days of Noah, when Noah was born. But by the time the Great Flood occurred, 600 years later, much of that, it was a very dystopian society that was living at the time. Most of the infrastructures that were enjoyed 600 years previously had collapsed. So yes, I went into depth on Die-Hold, and I go back to 2003, 2004, and show. I'm new to a lot of you guys, but I've been publishing since 2003, 2004, and 2005. I have never deviated from my original publications and my articles, like that were published in Paranoia magazine. I've had my same publisher, Booktree of San Diego, for a long time, and I realized that many of you don't know who I am. I've never been big, but I have never deviated from 2040 as the Phoenix and 2046 as Nemesis X Object. I have published charts that go back to 2003 and 2004 on that. And what I had found out about Douglas Voigt and the Die-Hold Foundation kind of disappointed me. Although they haven't done anything wrong, it's just their method of determining 2046. You just have to watch the video. You have to watch the video. Let's see. I will find that, and you know what? I will repost it today. That's what I will do. I'll just, instead of a video on YouTube, I will repost it as a post, just so you guys can go see it, see what I'm talking about. All right, let me just drink some of this coffee. By the way, the archaic shirts were not, I gave permission to somebody who wanted to do that. I don't make any money from that. I gave them the logos, gave them the material, and they started their line. If you want to order archaic shirts, to do it. I got like 5 of them now. Here's another one right here. I don't know if y'all can see all that. Here, let me spread it out. Yeah, I got a bunch. I got 4 or 5 of them. I'm gonna order a couple more. There's somebody else's. I designed them all, but they put them on different colored T-shirts and all that stuff. So, but I provide the links too. I don't know if the links are down below in this video. I don't remember. Hey, thank you for smashing that like button, guys. Appreciate it. All right. Hey, Lewis. I see you everywhere, Lewis. I know you do a lot of work with J Dreamers, man. I'd make you a mod here if you wanted to, because you have really high participation too. I just don't want to step on J Dreamers' toes, man. Hi, Shiva. Glad you're here moderating. I got another movie too. I remember from my childhood, man. Something J Dreamers needs to break down. I'm not going to break down movies. I'm just not going to do it. But he did a really fantastic job of breaking down Night of the Comet, one of the formative movies in my childhood. And Night of the Comet, it's like a Phoenix phenomenon video. It's awesome. But has all the elements. You know, government scientists hiding underground, mutants, red dust, celestial object that appears. Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, let's go on with this. let's move forward. Man, I've already been running my mouth for an hour. Rihanna Ferguson, how do you buy all your public? She got her question all in caps. Everybody else seems to be talking to each other. Let's see. Hey, I'm gonna get to that in a minute. High Vibe Genera, listen. You asked me, what do you think about Ethiopia having a different calendar than the rest of the world? I don't. I haven't found any value in the Bulgarian or the Ethiopian calendar. These calendars that pretend to go back to certain to great vast time periods and stuff. It says, listen, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I said that in my very first YouTube video, and I live by that creed. It said, I'm not going to present something to you if I can't back it up in multiple different ways. Those calendars cannot be supported historically. Just like the Egyptian Old Kingdom calendar is absolute BS. A culture, it was very popular for cultures in old times to basically present themselves as far older than they were. This is the problem we have with the Egyptian priests of Sais. The Egyptian priests of Sais, or Sai, however you pronounce it, when they presented their material to Solon, they did so with so many anachronisms, we can't take the story seriously about Atlantis. Now, we can if we remove the anachronistic material, and this is what I have done and showed in Chronicon, that it wasn't just me, but Eudoxus of Knidos and Diodorus Siculus and Strabo, these ancient historians and writers, they understood that when the Egyptians provided you a date such as 17,000 units in the past, you had to divide that by whichever priesthood gave you that date, because some of them were operating on a 13-month lunar calendar, others were on a 12-month solar calendar. You had to take it into its proper context. This is something I do. When you reinterpret the Egyptian arithmetic based off how the Egyptians viewed their timekeeping systems, then you won't make the mistake that Solon and Plato did, which was to actually consider Atlantis as 11,000 BC, or excuse me, 9,000 years before Solon. That's crazy, because it couldn't have happened. There wasn't an Egyptian civilization at that time. There wasn't a Greek civilization at that time. So there could have never been a war against Atlantis. It's an anachronism. But when you divide it by 12 or 13, you're reduced to the 13th or 14th century BC. And that's when we had a great disaster that destroyed many Mediterranean civilizations, including Knossos, the Minoan capital of Crete. That's when the Atlantis story could have happened. So, let's see. I was just about to answer somebody else's comment. So yeah, Ethiopia has a lot to prove if they're going to try and prove that. And so far they haven't done it. I've reviewed the material. Matter of fact, I have a copy of Kebra Nagast up here somewhere. I will post the die hold video today as a YouTube post. Will this be on the exam? Stop it. All right. I'm looking for the one I was just about to answer. It's in here somewhere. Chat just moves so fast. Oh, how do you? That's the question it was. Listen, I have a thumb drive. Somebody's asking me right here, how do you get, instead of ordering all the individual things on Gumroad and all that stuff? Listen, you're not the only one to ask that. That's why I provided the super pack. I provide a thumb drive for $60. It's a super pack. Actually, it's a hell of a deal. You get it's over 3,000 pages, images, charts, timelines, all my unpublished books, all my published books. Everything's wrapped up in a single single place. It's all PDF files and JPEGs, images. It's a tremendous. It'd take you 6 months to read all that material. hundreds of articles I've written, 1,500 pages of unpublished handwritten notes that I individually scanned from hundreds of old books and sources. Many of the materials that I will not verbally talk about on YouTube are all on that thumb drive. So yeah, I do that because there's a lot of researchers out there that want this information, and I don't feel threatened at all by other people, like the post I did this morning. Other people taking the Archaic's data and running with it. I'm not your average researcher. I don't find and discover things and put data points and data sets together and then lay copyright on them. I don't care. All I want to do is put the information out. So all these other channels that are starting to put out a lot of material. I mean, there's even I've been very observant, and I get emails from people too that tell me, "Hey man, check out this guy here," and I can tell when people are influenced by my videos, and their own videos now have the Archaic's flavoring and are employing vernacular and syntax for which their prior videos before I blew up didn't have a trace of. But I wish you guys would stop sending me emails alerting me, because that's what it's all about. I'm not here to divide and conquer. I'm here to disseminate information. And if these other channels find value in my material and they use it, fine. If they cite me, that's good. Draws more attention to my own channel. If they don't cite me, more power to me. I'm not losing anything. It's just information. So I told you guys I have an agenda. My agenda is to finish Chronicon, and I need to finish Chronicon and provide that and send copies of it all around the world. And it's not for you guys. It's for your children. It's for your children's children, because the world after May 16th, 2040 is going to be a fundamentally different world, and they need to know what happened. They need to know what led up to the event. The Vapor Canopy world that's going to return is going to pretty much do away with things like libraries and the acquisition of information. So I need to provide that steel case with leather-bound books that are weather-packed. And I told you what my agenda. Many of my videos, I tell you guys, Chronicon is my life project. YouTube channel is not. It's just a stepping stone. All right. So let's get off into this a little bit. So I'm gonna, instead of looking at all these books and materials, I'm just gonna tell you straight off my head what we're looking at. So many of you know that have been with me for a long time that about 5 months ago I had released a video about a very new discovery about 522. I had already documented much material about the anomalous things that happened in the sky, in the year 522. So, but at the time it wasn't called 522. We were still under the Roman Julian calendar. Rome had already fallen earlier, and it was a period of instability. But 522 is the only year in all of world history that the phoenix appeared in the sky in the same year that the Nemesis X object appeared in the sky. When you use a computer and you plug in the number 138 going back through history, through all the times Phoenix has, we have a perfect timeline of 138 years. And I've shown this. I've shown this many times. I don't have to just, you guys have seen this. This is still missing three of them, but we have, at 138 years, you can go back a phenomenally long time, way before the 5th century BC, and you will never see the Nemesis X object, which is on a totally different timeline, ever intersect with Phoenix. It's never happened in the past, but in 522 it did, and the series of events was so harrowing, the resets, the earthquakes, the tidal waves, tsunamis, mud floods, the red mud dust fallout, the sun going dark, the new vapor canopy, a dust veil had appeared over the world. It was the beginning of a vapor canopy. For 20 years the sun looked very, very dull. Mass starvation had happened. The Roman Catholic Church finally got fed up with the Phoenix calendar, the Phoenix timeline. They did away with it. They created a new one, and they used an agent to do it, and he developed a new calendar and a way to conceal it. He backdated that calendar 500 years. In backdating that calendar, that's how the Anno Domini calendar was created, because by the time the world started using the Anno Domini calendar, it was already 800 years from its backdated inception date, because it didn't take off instantly, but it was an excellent way to conceal all the stuff that had happened in 522 and then spread it over a 20-year period. The 20-year period really did happen. It was a darkness. It started the Dark Ages. But all the singular events and all the catastrophes and all that all happened in 522. The Roman Catholic Church doctored the historical documents. After 300 or 400 years, they put out new copies of older documents, and the newer copies had now stretched it out into a Justinian plague and a Justinian period of time, stretching it out all the way into the 540s AD. Only the darkness lasted to the 540s. It was almost the beginning of a new vapor canopy. This was in 522 to 541 or 542 that we had this darkness. This darkness actually started what we call historically as the Dark Ages, and the Dark Ages lasted quite a while. So it wasn't the first time this has happened. It was the last time, and it gets really, really curious the further back we go. But remember, in 1902, Charles Fort had documented a lot of anomalous things that had fallen out of the sky, red mud and red earth. He even showed the scientific journals that were talking about the material, the red material in some area, dependent upon local weather conditions. In some areas of the world, it was a red fine dust. In others, it was gummy. In others, it was a red rain. In other areas, it fell as red mud. In Australia, it was 500 million tons per square mile. Red mud rained all over Australia in 1902 and 1903. Charles Fort, after itemizing all the weird stuff that happened after the appearance of a very unusual red star in the sky, he said 1902 was the other Dark Age. Now, that's just a coincidence, because 1902 didn't really begin a Dark Age. It ended one that began in 1890, because in 1902, we have something very unusual. In 1902, as I've documented now in 5 videos, all the strange things that had happened, in 1902, we have a rat race. It's almost as if every billionaire and every millionaire who was hiding the years before suddenly appeared in 1902 and unleashed their wealth. They unleashed their hundreds of companies, their GMOs, all kinds of stuff, NGOs, all these entities, government bureaucracies, all these scientific panels. It's almost as if the world was in stasis for years leading up to 1902. And then when the danger passed and the elite realized this isn't the big one and it was over, they sent scientists all over the world to basically get more information and discover what was going on. 2 of those scientists went to Martinique, where 30,000 people were incinerated in less than 20 seconds when a volcano, Mount Pelée, blew up in the French Caribbean. Those 2 scientists were studying insects and plant life in the volcano itself, and every day they were exposed to the ambient radiation that came from that volcano. And it was documented that those 2 men, one in their late 50s and one in their 60s, both grew 2 inches taller. That's a vapor canopy condition. Vapor canopies are created by an immense amount of volcanism, and this is what we find in the ancient past. So 1902 was 138 years before 2040, when the big one is going to happen. So let's discuss these Dark Ages. This 1902 Charles Fort talked about. the Anno Domini, we've already covered that. The whole Anno Domini calendar that we live under today was created at one of these Phoenix-induced dark ages. But when we go further back in time, we find something very anomalous. There was a dark age that very few historians have ever covered, but archaeology shows it well. In the year 31 BC, over Egypt, it was recorded that a fiery red dragon flew over the sky of Egypt at night. 31 BC, during the Battle of Actium, when Rome was finally subduing Queen Cleopatra and her Roman lover Antony. In 31 BC, as the navies met, there were tremendous earthquakes in Olympia. Many of the old Greek ruins fell. They were just totally obliterated and destroyed. They had been standing for a long period, the ones that had survived prior earthquakes. But in these earthquakes, most of the Greek ruins that were surviving from the old Greek world fell. They were already 7, 8, 9, and 1,000 years old. They fell. These are ruins that go back to the days of Atreus. These are the Argives, the Dorians, the basically the pre-Greek people, the settlers that came from Mycenae and Minoa and Argos. So their ruins all toppled and fell in 31 BC. Well, at the same time, a massive earthquake shook Jerusalem and leveled buildings and killed a lot of people throughout Judea. This is in 31 BC. But the Near East and the Mediterranean merely saw the phenomena and felt the earthquake shakes. Where the real destruction happened was in the Americas. In the ancient Americas in 31 BC, the Olmec civilization was completely obliterated. In La Venta, Central America, all of Veracruz, all the old Olmec states collapsed, gone. The survivors basically became what we know of as the Maya. They preserved the same timekeeping system. But the very last final date ever found on Olmec steels translates in our calendar today as 31 BC. You can't make this stuff up. This has been reported even in academic books, and I cite the sources in my own published books. 31 BC was a Phoenix year. Not 32 and not 30. 31 BC when all these events happened. And I'm not even naming all the events. I'm just going off memory right now to let you guys know. In the ancient Americas, there is a dark age that separates the collapse of the Olmeca and the rise of the Maya, the Mayan culture in the exact same part of the world. So the separation between these two cultures is a dark age. And it was caused by the Phoenix in ancient America. Water break. Looking to move to the Texas Panhandle, are you? I'm looking at questions real quick. Question, created an our, my image? If so, who is our? Same as Wolf says, as opposed to lion. I don't know what it's talking about. But to me, I interpret the Bible a lot differently than most people. It says, in the beginning, man was made in the image of God. And in the image of God was man made. And it's a poem. It's like a poem and a riddle. But you know what? It just tells me that humans on the outside of this construct created our present human avatars for us to live through this construct. If you're made in the image of gods and we look the way we look today, then that means the gods look the way we look in here, which means the gods are just humans on the outside of the construct. That does not mean at all that there isn't an oversoul, that there isn't a God. It just means that we're not living in a real reality right now. Let me continue, though. Because remember, these are just conclusions. They have nothing to do with my data points. They have nothing to do with my data sets. Anytime we're discussing simulation theory, don't get turned off about it. This is just from my perspective when I take into consideration all the anomalies of the ancient world. When I take into consideration that my research, Chronicon, shows an absolutely too perfect mathematical distribution of events that cannot be random. They can't. And I've documented this over and over and over in published books and in videos and articles. There's just no way the history of the world could have unfolded with these mathematical patterns, because it shows that events are not random. And if events are not random and they're controlled, therefore I'm living in a construct. I'm not living in a real reality. And when I listen to my scientific betters who have analyzed basically matter down to its subatomic structure, and we find out that everything just dissolves into oscillating fields, and I listen to astronomers and people who know about astronomy, and the more they magnify the stars, they just dissolve into oscillating fields, then I'm in a hologram. Simple as that. And you can't really magnify pure data from inside a construct. You will never be able to objectively learn about the construct itself. You can only analyze its structuring, and analyzing its structuring is only done by the unfolding of events that you mathematically analyze. We can't. We're stuck in a situation that we can't study. We can only study the effects. All the causes are outside the construct. So, anyway, y'all know me. I'm going to hit them tangents. I'm going to lose my train of thought. We're talking about the Phoenix. I just want to let you know, man, don't get turned off by simulation theory. It may not be your conclusion, but my conclusion and your disagreement with my conclusion will never, ever change the fact that the Phoenix phenomenon is so well documented. It's basically an unbreakable thesis. I stand behind it. It's got too much data. There are theories that are very popular in the world today that don't have an ounce of supporting data, like even comparable to what we have on the Phoenix phenomenon. So let's get back to it. So 522, 1902, they're all separated by spans of time that are divisible by 138 years. And there's many events that happened in between those, but they didn't start dark ages. That's what this video is about. When the Phoenix phenomenon initiated dark ages. 1902, Charles Fort referred to a dark age, but 522, the dark age the Roman Catholic Church tried to hide. That was a dark age. 552 years before that, the ancient Americas experienced a terrible dark age. We do not have any historical records of the destruction that happened at the time. What we have is archaeological records. David Hatcher Childress has provided a lot of those through all the sources that he's documented and read. And there's been many archaeological foundations that have basically documented all we're talking about lava flows that go over pyramids. We're talking about whole pyramid cities that were broken as if they were like matchbooks. The level of destruction that happened was horrific. That happened in but the survivors moved on and quickly built an even more advanced civilization. They flowered into the Mayan. So we'll move on from that. That was 31 BC. It started a dark age, but that dark age wasn't in. That dark age was not on the hemisphere of Egypt, the Mediterranean, and the Near East. That dark age was local to the Americas. So we move back in time. 1,104 years is a very specific number as well. It's 552 plus 552. This 1104 year period before 31 BC was the year 1135 BC, and we have some very harrowing things that happened. This was the final year of Pharaoh Seknakti, and he specifically left a record of the great destruction that happened in Egypt, happened the world, the sky darkening, earthquakes, tsunamis. Ramesses II began reigning in the exact same year, and his records also reveal the same cataclysm. What ended Seknakti's rule began Ramesses II's rule. So we have this huge cataclysm going on, but even apart from the Egyptian records, we have the great massive invasion of the Dorian invasion. We have the Tuatha Danann, a Israelite pedigree people who invaded Ireland and lost. The gigantic Firbolgs had beat the hell out of the Danann, but the Danann regrouped and they got reinforcements because they're a maritime empire. These were the people of Danu, or the goddess Danu. These are people who passed through the pages of Homer's Iliad. They had participated in the war against Troy on the Mycenaean side. Many of these Danann became settlers in Greece and Argos, and they became basically the largest bloodline of ancient Greece. These people had ultimately come from Palestine, but they didn't stay long with the other Israelites. Before that, they had been pretty much followers of the goddess Hathor and the golden calf of ancient Egypt, from which they had originally come. These people had left and found their ways through the Mediterranean, left many colonies. All throughout the Bible, they're called the tribe of Dan. They are the people of the serpent, and they had serpentine ships. They were the mariners of the high seas. They had taken over the role of the Carians. The Carians before them had ruled the entire ancient Mediterranean. They were feared everywhere. These are pre-Phoenician people, and then it was the Danu, then it was the Phoenicians. But interestingly, all three cultures were related to each other. So we have the situation where the Danann knew what was about to happen to the sky. We don't know how the Tuatha Danann had these records, but they knew that there was going to be earthquakes and that the sun was going to darken. So they timed the Second Battle of Moytura, which is the Field of Towers in ancient Ireland. They timed their invasion and their battle with the Firbolgs at the exact same time that the sun did darken. And as the sun did darken over Ireland, at an extreme angle over Anatolia, King Merciless II of Hatti recorded that the sun had become obscured by unknown means. The same time Seknakti said the sun darkened over Egypt. So 1135 BC. Oh, and by the way, you'd have to go to my published books and videos to see. I have a lot more about 1135 BC. I don't want to get off into the details in this video. Those are the other videos are for. I'm about Dark Ages because that's exactly what happened right here. In 1135 BC, earthquakes, tsunamis, tidal waves, all kinds of massive destruction happened throughout the Middle East, and it is very well documented, not only archaeologically, but in the historical traditional records. The Dark Age was so devastating and so perfect that for 300 years, there's literally no history coming out of the Mediterranean. It's almost non-existent. We have fragments coming out from Egypt, the Near East, the Levant area, Greece. The Aegean is so absolutely silent for 300 years. Literacy had collapsed. Then suddenly, around 795 BC, Greece wakes up, and we have the epic works of Theognis, of Hesiod, Works and Days. We have Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey. These three, followed by many others. We have this Ionian infusion of blood from basically Anatolia. Greece just takes off, and the Greeks that we know of today, basically that's their origin, was at this time period. After this Dark Age was over, they flowered into an awesome people. And there were like five. There were actually like 15 different cultures, but they all later on they all considered themselves to be Greek, all of one culture. And ultimately, when you trace them back far enough, they came from the Levant. They came from the areas that geographically we know of as Israel. However, let me be clear: never in the historical record has any people ever been called Israel. Never. These people were actually Amorites, which means Westerner, and they are shown in the Egyptian temples of Karnak as the Tamahu. Very tall, alabaster skin. They were considered to be very intelligent. They were record keepers, history. They were very literate people. They were even honored in ancient Babylon. The fifth dynasty of Babylon of Hammurabi was an Amorite. They were called the Amuru, the Amorite dynasty. It is these people that in the Old Testament are called Israelites. But in the historical record, they're called the Amuru. They were of the house of Omri. In the Old Testament, they are from the house of Omri, and they were against the house of Judah at all times. There was never a connection between the people of Edom, Judah, and the people of Omri, of the Hurrians. So there's a lot of confusion because people think that the Old Testament is historically accurate. It's not. It's not. The Old Testament is a whole bunch of historical text and documents that have been taken from a plethora of sources that were all rewritten and redacted through Jewish filters. And this is why we have the confusion today. But when you separate all the elements and you realize who these people are and why they attach such significant basically, their ancestors were considered to be Brahma and Saraswati, which the Jews borrowed. When Brahma and Saraswati were actually kin and related in the Hindu writings, but when the Jews found these records in Babylon, they rewrote them and created a Semitic Abraham, whose wife was Sarai. Later she had a name change to Sarah. But these are just Jewish borrowings from older Babylonian records that were in honor of the old Vedic and Hindu patriarchs of Brahma and Saraswati, patriarchal family. So I don't want to go here. There I go, entertaining tangents again. I'm sorry about that, guys. But so anyway, let's move on to 1135 BC. We have this great dark age that happens. That's very well documented in the historical record. 300 years of silence, and then the Greek nation, not nation, but the Greek cultures start stirring. Literacy abounds, and now the bards are no longer having to memorize all their material. Now they're writing them down, and this is why the Greek alphabet is actually descended from the older Phoenician ones, and the Phoenician ones were descended from Minoan Linear 2, and then Minoan Linear B, and then because of a cataclysm, Minoan Linear B was formed. But before the cataclysm, it was Minoan Linear A. So these alphabets go back anciently to the exact same people, these Hurrians, later known as the Amuru, who the Jews called Israelites of the house of Omri. But the house of Omri was pronounced in the Near East as Qumri, and this is why we have this great vast collection of peoples found in Assyrian records that were equestrians, people who had mastered the horse and chariot. They were basically called the Qumri, and later on they were called the Kimri. This was later over centuries during the Dark Age changed to Simri. Then it was changed to Cimmerians, which was not Sumerians, but the Simri and the Cimmerians. This is the Cimmerian. This is why the Old Testament shows basically a chain of evidence of even using the Jewish filters. You can see the Israelite pedigree of peoples coming from the Amuru, who basically were a military order out of Arya. They invaded India. They had, for centuries, they lived among the Dravidians in a peaceful coexistence. This is the origin of the Hindu literature. These people left after a series of cataclysms, and because they were called the Amuru, it was understood by the people of the Mediterranean and the Near East and Egypt that these were foreigners that after a cataclysm had come from somewhere else. They had come from the far west. And I have discussed this in many of my videos that the Amuru came from North America. They were a Caucasoid people. They were very tall, very white-skinned, green-eyed, blue-eyed. They had red hair, blonde hair, brown hair, and they were a maritime race of people. And in ancient Akkad, the stories of them were known as the Anuna. But later they were called the Amuru. The Babylonians had called them the Anunnaki, and it basically had created a worship of these these people that really didn't belong from space. As Zecharia Sitchin was heavily influenced by the Edomite Jewish interpretations of ancient history and not the Amuru interpretations. Because the Amuru, and to understand, to go deep into the Amuru studies, you got to read people like Albert T. Clay, a scholar over 100 years ago who was publishing books showing translations. Samuel Noah Kramer, Marine Gallery Kovacs. You have to read the people that were originally Thor Heyerdahl, people who are Professor Waddell, people who are translating Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian over 100 years ago, and not the people, not the sensationalists like Zecharia Sitchin, who's going to have you believing that the Anunnaki came from space and all that. And none of that is in the original records. None of that is in the clay tablets that we have today. No Sumerian drop ships. There ain't no probes. There ain't no descent from the sky in all flying boats and all that stuff. Every bit of it, it's not. They came from the west by way of Dilmun because of a catastrophe. They came from North America. So when the Amuru populated this entire area after a cataclysm, they brought literacy with them. This is why so many linguistic studies are all basically showing that all these language systems go up a tree all the way to a single parent tongue. Go back far enough, it's a single parent tongue. So let me get some more water. Actually, I want some coffee. Well, maybe this is bad timing, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe I should schedule it differently. My last live video, we had over 1,100 people on at the exact same time. I mean, 860 is good. I appreciate it. And I got 760 likes. And if you haven't smashed that like button, do so for me. Thank you. So I appreciate that. But maybe 2 o'clock, maybe 12 noon is too early. What do you guys suggest? I'm not done with this video. We got a lot more to cover. But what do you guys suggest that for a good time, because I'm in Central Texas and I'm full-time Archaics now, I can do a live video anytime. What's the best day? I mean, what's the best time of day for my viewers? I have a lot of viewers in Australia. I have a lot of viewers in the UK. And I have the most right here in the United States and some in Mexico. Now, I have a scattering in New Zealand. You know, that would be considered Australia area. I have a scattering throughout Europe. People from Europe have ordered. For some reason, Europeans, they don't like the internet. I don't know what it is. It's the Europeans that want thumb drives. They want all my material on thumb drives so they can just watch it on their computers or something. Europeans, yeah, I don't. Maybe y'all have internet problems over there. I don't know. And after the video's over and posted, I go through the chat. Like I did my last live videos. I take the time and I go through the chat. I understand that I'm missing questions. I get that. I do. And some of you have donated, and I understand that I probably missed you because I was running my mouth. I get that too, man. So I appreciate everything you guys do. I really do. And I'm seeing a bunch of questions about resources. Look in the description box on this video. There is a full list of all the links you could go. You can find everything, whatever you're looking for. Whatever you're looking for. Ha, Julka. Thank you, Julka. SOS, huh? My PC got whacked watching this? Well, I'm sorry, man. It wasn't me that did it. I still have to go through the mid rolls on my first like 80 videos because I have taken out the commercials in the middle of the videos for like 200 videos, but I still might have as many 100 videos, all the older ones, where I have to go in my settings and remove that ability. I didn't know that I had so many choices where ads could go. I just monetized the channel. I didn't know I could choose where the ads were. I didn't know that YouTube was just spamming the hell out of some of my older videos. So when people tell me that those videos are in the middle, those ads are in the middle, I go in there right then and there because I can just click on the video, go into the settings, and disable that. Now, for my really long videos, I might give YouTube the ability to put one little commercial in there. I just learned how to do that. As a matter of fact, my problem is I don't have the time. So I don't know when I'll ever get to that. But for right now, I know over 200 of my videos, I have completely disabled the ads in the middle of the video. You should only see an ad or two at the beginning of a video. And if you hang all the way to the end of a video, you might see an ad or two. But in the middle of the video, it's only my first videos, my older videos. I need to take the time to go remove those. Deal. I can't remember. Thank you, Emma Watchman. Let's see. Maybe evening time would be best. I didn't get notified either. A lot of people tell me that they don't get notifications. Is there something on my end that I can do to make sure that the notifications go out? Or is it on your end? Do you have to hit that notification bell? I don't know. 864 people watching. That's a golden proportion number. 144 times 6. Doesn't mean anything. It's just a golden, it's a number of the golden mean. 432 times 2. 108 times 8. Y'all know about 108. Magic number. So anyway, 1135 BC, that is what happened. In 1135 BC, we had this dark age, the dark age, and then at the end of that dark age, during the dark age period of 300 years, the ancient Amorite, the ancient Hurrian, the ancient Ionian, the ancient Danu, the ancient Levantian people, the Amuru, they basically made the transition during that 300-year dark age, intermarrying and all that stuff. They made the transition from being the people of the Bible, the people of the Old Testament, the House of Qumri. They made the transition into entering the historical record of the people that we know as the Thessalonians, the Macedonians, the other Ionians, the ancient Greeks, and all the different Greek cultures, and all the colonies like Sicily, all the colonies that had left that area, like the Etruscans. So we have, they're not the only one, because after the end of this dark age, they appeared elsewhere too, all throughout Ireland. They appeared, new fresh blood arrived in ancient Britain. These people, these Amuru, that's what they did. That is one of the chief characteristics of all Caucasian peoples. They are travelers. They migrate. They take their infrastructures with them. They take their religious beliefs. Caucasians, unlike any other race of people in the world, are migrants. They travel. They build infrastructures. They're on the move. They build vast maritime trade empires. This is what they do. Oriental people are not like that. Oriental people are very traditional. They stay in the same spot. Their dynasties go thousands of years unchanged, without outside influence. This is why China is so rich in archaeology and in history. This is why Tibet has so many old manuscripts we haven't even started interpreting yet. This is, these people never leave the lands of their nativity. The Amerindic people, the Native Americans, they're the same way. They're traditional. They have the same ideology as sub-Saharan African people. Black people do not leave the lands of their nativity. They stay in the world that they're familiar with, and that world stays the same. Now, Phoenix tends to support. Phoenix tends to basically enrich the lives of those type of people, non-Caucasian peoples. And what I mean by this is Phoenix has a tendency of removing or collapsing infrastructures and returning environments back into natural habitats. This is what it does. It's a weapon hidden in the sky that appears every 138 years. But that's the subject matter from my books and all my other videos. This is about Dark Ages. So we have the Dark Age of 1902, which is really a metaphor for all the things that happened. Then we've covered the Anno Domini calendar, 522 AD Dark Age, which started the Dark Ages that we know of, before the Middle Ages, before the Renaissance, before the Industrial Revolution, before modern history. Now we've covered the Great Mediterranean Dark Age of 1135 BC, the collapse of Sennacherib's rule and the beginning of Ramesses II's rule, the Dorian invasions, the invasion of the Tuatha De Danann, who used it, predicted the Phoenix was going to occur, and used it to their advantage to terrify the Firbolgs of ancient Ireland. We've covered that. Now, we go back 552 years. Remember that number? It's one of the data points. We go back, it was a Phoenix cycle. We go back 552 years before 1135 BC, and we arrive at the year 1687 BC. In the year 1923, a 551-page book was published. The author was W.J. Perry. The book is called Children of the Sun. The subject matter is about the archaic civilization. The conclusion of that book is phenomenal. 551 pages of data about the archaic civilization, the maritime empire, describing a world that was built by a single civilization with ruling dynasties and families spread all over the Middle East, all over, from China all the way to the Americas. A single ruling dynasty ruled everybody. In Egypt, Babylon, everywhere. Mediterranean, Greece. This archaic civilization suddenly met with a harrowing catastrophe in the month of May in he said about, this is a direct quote from W.J. Perry, about 1688 BC. That is the scientific bullseye. So what happened in 1687 BC? Well, it was a Phoenix year. The Phoenix is what happened. Stephen Jones, biblical chronologist who wrote Secrets of Time, concluded that in 2208 Annus Mundi, earthquakes destroyed Canaan, the whole Israelite area. In that year, the Canaanite men of the house of Shechem raped an Israelite daughter. Her name was Dinah. When all the brothers found out, all the sons of Jacob, these original Israelite patriarchs, these Amuru Westerners, when they found out that their daughter had been raped, that their sister had been raped, the daughter of Jacob, they got together and they went to the house of Shechem and they started chopping off body parts. They killed the men of Shechem, basically after torturing them. The story is in the Jewish Haggadah and in the book of Jasher. The Canaanites were so pissed about what happened to the men of Shechem that they summoned 7 different Canaanite armies and they surrounded the sons of Jacob and their houses. Now you have to understand, we're not talking about just 12 boys. We're talking about full-grown men with their own sons, and each one of these men had their own house staff, which means they had a captain of the guard, they had a small militia, maybe 200 or 300 soldiers apiece. These men all came together behind this rape, and now they had to protect the house of Yaakov. They had to protect the house of Yaakov because now the Canaanite locals were pissed, and they attacked. Jacob prayed to the sky and asked for God's deliverance. I'm not believing that narrative. I'm not believing it because Jacob was Amuru. You have to understand that I'm not making these details up. You will find in the Old Testament that there is a reference to the Israelite ancestors being Amorites. You will find references to Abraham being an Amorite. Amorite is a Muru. These people were in possession of the Phoenix chronology. They knew every time it was going to happen. They were descended from the house of Shurappak. They were descended from the very Sumerians that had preserved the fact and predicted that the Great Flood was going to occur. The Great Flood occurred 552 years before 1687 BC. It's a Phoenix cycle. These people knew they were the descendants of people who had maintained an infrastructure that was scientific, and they knew the Phoenix timeline. So in the book of Jasher, we find out in the year 2208 Annus Mundi, which translates in our calendar as 1687 BC. You see how two different sources from the ancient world actually coming from two different directions chronologically line up exactly on the same year, which is supported by W.J. Perry's 551-page book, Children of the Sun, when he said 1688 was the approximate year that every single civilization in the world collapsed. Yes, this is all this is why chronology is how you study history. If you do not have a chronographical framework to use, then you're just theorizing. That's all you're doing. So we have Stephen Jones said 2208, and he also said 1687 BC, and they do line up perfectly. I show in Chronicon. 2208 Annus Mundi is the year 1687 BC. Exactly. Phoenix appeared. Let's read Archaic Civilization Collapse. Jacob prays to the sun, and in the book of Jasher for the year 2208 Annus Mundi, it says, you know what? Let's just read it. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. Ain't no sense me sitting here telling you about it. What does it say for 2208 Annus Mundi? Let's just read it. Oh my God, I just got a hunger pain. Here it is. I'm going to read it to you right now. Okay. Let me go back just a little bit. Biblical chronologist Stephen Jones in The Secrets of Time, along with some other historians, date the rape of Dinah using the Jasher and other Hebraic writings to the year 1687 BC. It was in this year, within weeks after the sons of Jacob slaughtered the men of Shishim, that the kings of Canaan with Amorite troops assembled for war against the house of Jacob. Remember, the ancient Jews and the Amorites were always enemies, the Amuru, the Israelites. A mighty host of 13 kings with a force divided into 7 hosts, led by the Amorite king of gigantic stature named Jashub of the city of Tapnach. Following him were many of those descended from the giants. As Jacob's sons and their trained servants, 112 men in all, prepared their armor and weapons of war, the patriarch Jacob despaired and cried into the sky, asking for God's deliverance. Now, this is a direct quote from the book of Jasher, 1687 BC, 2208 Annus Mundi. And when Jacob ceased praying to the Lord, the earth shook from its place, and the sun darkened, and all these kings were terrified, and a great consternation seized them. And the Lord hearkened to the prayer of Jacob, and the Lord impressed upon the hearts of the kings and their host with terror and with awe for the sons of Jacob. That's incredible. It really is. It's incredible. In this book right here, it goes on to the next part, which talks about Tiwanaku, because in 1687 BC, South America was also destroyed. Pumapunka, Tiwanaku, it was all tied to a prophecy of the destruction by the sun. So The book goes into many, many different civilizations and how they all recorded it at that time period. In the Mediterranean world, we have an anomaly. This one is supported by historians and archaeologists. Whatever happened in 1687 BC was so devastating that the world did not wake up for 25 years. Matter of fact, what happened? Yes, the world did not wake up for 25 years. Cloud cover, starvation, all kinds of stuff happened. We have a lot about it. We do have a lot about it, but I don't have it in that book. Oh, I know where it's at. Let's go. Let me read you something from Harold T. Wilkins about what happened. Because 1687 BC is the Ogygian Deluge. It is a massive destruction throughout all the Mediterranean. But don't take my word for it. Harold T. Wilkins for the Ogygian Deluge. This is crazy. Harold T. Wilkins is describing off the coast of South America what happened to Easter Island, 1687 BC. Wilkins' penetrating research into ancient American traditions and texts has him specifically connect the ruin of Easter Island to the Ogygian Flood of 1687 BC. He wrote, quote, "The whole island shook, mountainous waves of the ocean, infuriated and maddened by some tremendous force, swept right over the tall cliffs and crashed onto the feet of the colossal images." Remember the giant red heads on Easter Island? So the light of the day went out. The sky darkened. The night of total eclipse had come. A heavy black pall covered the vault of the heavens. Strange rains of blood-red water and white ash cascaded from the sky, filled the causeways. The terrified slaves in the quarry workshops threw down their tools. Oh, I got to mention this. Archaeologists have found that all over Easter Island, the campaign or the project to build these giant heads had stopped abruptly during an earthquake. Proof of this is how some of the heads have fallen and how the workshops have been excavated. Tools, hammers, chisels, all that stuff was found on the surface of the ground when the destruction happened. They know where the original surface of the ground is because of the pumice, the ash, and all the materials that were spread before it was buried later by sediments. This is not unique to Easter Island. The destruction in North America was so bad in 1687 BC, it stopped all the copper mining in Michigan and the Ohio Valley. Archaeologists have found the copper fields. It's the only place in the world where copper in its purest native form can be found lying on the surface of the ground. The copper fields were being mined and stripped, and the copper went underground as well, and they mined it too. But in 1687 BC, all copper mining stopped in North America. Hammers and chisels and buckets and wheelbarrows, everything has been found on the surface where it was left. Something happened that scared the workers away, and they never came back. It's not unique to North America as well. The same thing was found in ancient Baalbek. Baalbek, you know of it as the Trilithon, the largest stone bricks in the world put into the wall of the Trilithon. In Baalbek in Lebanon, the same thing was found. Archaeologists dated the destruction as 1687 BC. When the destruction occurred, that layer is littered with hammers and tools of the trade, of the mason trade, because the workers left and never came back. Those three places, I believe Angkor Wat is another place, but not the Angkor Wat that's on the surface, a subsurface level. I can't remember. I have 5 different locations in the ancient world that were all destroyed by 1687 BC. They're in my published books. I even mentioned them in my videos where archaeologists actually found all the building materials that hadn't been used in the projects yet, and actual tools laying, and no skeletons, because people either vanished or they ran away because of the earthquakes. But yeah, I can't remember all the different locations, but there are several of them. One of them is in Greece. I can't remember the name of the place. I can't. I see Robert Seifer's name. Oh, yeah, a collaboration with Robert Seifer. Yeah, it's I told you guys I like both of them. John Levy and Robert Seifer. I was very wrong. I never had anything wrong with. I never said anything bad about John Levy intentionally. I was referring to Robert Seifer before I knew that Robert Seifer was actually bucking the system. I was turned off by the fact that people were sending me emails telling me he's an anthropologist, and that right there was no for me, because as you guys know in my videos, you will never provide me any evidence in this world that the uniformitarian natural selection evolutionary model is true. It's just the opposite. 800-page book called Evolution Cruncher is just one book that I have read that shows all the scientific data disproving natural selection, disproving evolution, and showing that the uniformitarian model is wrong, even quoting Charles Darwin as being a catastrophist, not a evolutionist. It's crazy. It's crazy. Don't worry about me, Victoria. I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat. As soon as this video is over, I'm going to find something to eat. Let's see. Oh, we got plenty of time. It's only been 2 hours. All right, guys. So, Harold T. Wilkins. Yeah, I want to tell you about the tools. So, Wilkins writes this having no knowledge of the Phoenix. Wilkins wrote this in the 1930s. It's almost 100 years ago. His research was a century ago. His book was published about 90 years ago. So, he wrote all this having no knowledge of the Phoenix chronology, and yet he's got the date perfect. He said the Ogygian Deluge, which we've dated many times by other sources. He wrote that a black cloud seemed suddenly to cover the face of the sun. It spread very rapidly to the horizons. The ground violently in tremendous heaved violently in tremendous tremors that lasted many minutes. The print in my book is small. This is a big book. It's a big book. This is Shocking Secrets of Antiquity. Just another one of the books I wrote. Let's see. I'm not trying to be a Mark Twain. I just want to get the information out there. Let's see. All right. He wrote the whole countrysides had never seen the sea, were now drowned as flames descended from the sky and set ablaze great primeval forests. The earth behaving very much like a planet that had been forced out of her orbit. The light of the sun vanished to return as a ball of blood. The sixth seal of Revelation, anyone? The penumbra darkened all the air, as in the time of the eclipse. Then an immense cloud of reddish powder filled the air, followed by a rain of fine cinders. 1902, red dust, red powder. Oh, did you know that there's scientific reports from 1902 and 1903 show that the red mud, red dust, red grains, red rocks, everything that fell from the sky was 65 to 85% organic compounds. Go figure that one. What is the Phoenix again? Now, remember, I've got videos about insect plagues coming straight from the sky. Frogs, lizards, all kinds of living organisms frozen, falling straight out of the sky. Remember, our world is not what you think. The object approached the earth. It shone with a brilliant light reflected from the sun, falling on a thick coating of ice. The object's glaciosphere. This was written 100 years ago. This split and fell to the earth, exposing a layer of red earth, which in turn fell on the earth like a rain of blood. There are places all throughout our world. Off the top of my head, I'll name one, Australia, where red, very red earth is found, but it's not native to the environment. It's all topical. We know where it's coming from, and it's been documented over and over and over. It's coming straight from the sky. All right. So that was that reference. Harold T. Wilkins, 100 years ago, says, in the skies of terrible night shone a giant object or a wandering star or a planet, but which brought such destruction on the earth that those who survived the disasters regained their sanity only slowly, but in some cases, not at all. He's describing what we know of as the Great Mediterranean Dark Age again. This is not the 1135 BC one. This was 552 years earlier. This was an almost, again, like 522. It's almost the return of another vapor canopy, a dust veil. The sun is black for 25 years. So this would happen. In another video, I explained the Ogygian Deluge was a return of the age of heroes, according to Hesiod. And I explained the only reason that happened was because vapor canopy conditions like before the flood had returned for a very temporary period of time, meaning all the babies that were born during that little 24, 25-year period, they had the same genetic sequences activated in their DNA that the people before the flood happened. Hesiod doesn't know anything about DNA, but he recorded that after the Ogygian Deluge, a second age of heroes began, but it was very short. Now, this bled into the next 200 years of history, where this new race that was born during the vapor canopy, man, they can run faster, they're taller, everybody's like Hercules. This is when the story of Jason and the Argonauts came out. Right after that dark age was over. Jason's boat was full of heroes. Hercules was one of them. So we have Castor and Pollux. So we have this age because right after, within one generation, within 30 years after the story of Jason and the Argonauts, which was basically a military expedition by ship, we have the story of the 7 against Thebes. This is the beginning of Greek history. The seven against Thebes was also full of heroes. 7 different nations, 7 different cities in Greece went against the city of Thebes and lost. Then we have the 10 years of the Trojan War, when the Mycenaeans finally basically invaded Ilium. And we have this 10-year, but in the fall of Troy, what do we have? We have men that are not like today, but they do remind us of the men of Genesis chapter 6, which was before the flood. Mighty men of renown, men of valor, the Gibberum, sometimes described as gigantic, heroes. Yeah, that's what Genesis chapter 6 talks about. So it's all about vapor canopy conditions. During the vapor canopy conditions, men grew to great heights. Remember the 2 scientists in 1902. They were exposed to ambient radiation from the Phoenix phenomenon that had just happened on the Isle of Martinique in the French Caribbean. They were studying the effects of Mount Paley's explosion, which had completely incinerated 30,000 people in the town of Martinique. Now, this is 1902 in the month of May. These men grew 2 inches. This is what Hesiod was referring to. After 1687 BC, vapor canopy comes back and a miniature age of heroes happens. Everything makes sense in the traditional and mythological record when you review all these data points chronologically. This is what I've been saying since my books were first published in 2006, when my articles were first published in 03 and 04 and 05. I've been saying from the very beginning that we will never understand our history, where we came from, and where we're heading to if we don't start putting this data together in a chronological framework. Because once we start looking at the chrono markers that are offered by all these ancient traditions and legends and texts, and we pay attention to what they were saying, and we put them all together, they all make sense. The ancients never lied to us. They were preserving information the best way they knew how. So Anyway, every bit of it makes sense. Every bit of it fits like a glove. So I want to go into this statement that Harold T. Wilkins said. He said that they only regain, after 1687 BC, they only regain their sanity slowly and sometimes not at all. I need to address that because we have another reference from history about the Ogygian Deluge. And unfortunately, I don't even know where it's at. So I'm not worried about reading it to you direct. I have it in my head. I just wish I could remember who said it. I can't remember who said it, but I do know sea crops. That's right, sea crops. That's what I wanted to remember. I'm not gonna be able to find it. I just can't go through all this stuff like that. I'm not gonna be able to find it. All right. After the Ogygian Deluge, in the traditional record of ancient Greece, we have the migration of sea crops. He takes a fleet of people from Egypt and he appears in the Peloponnesus, ancient Greece. When he appears, it's 189 years, because ancient historians said that when the flood of Ogyges happened, Greece was uninhabited for 189 years, wiped off the map. That's how bad this cataclysm was. For 189 years, there was a dark age. No literacy, no history being recorded. People were just existing. But what was happening was that this age of heroes, these people were being born, and they were huge, they were fast, they were smarter, they were like demigods. And this is why when the dark age was over, now we have these epic works about these people, and we call it Homer's Odyssey, Homer's Iliad. We call it Theognis, the writings of Theognis, Hesiod, Theognis, and Homer. They emerged after this period. And it's really fascinating, because they talk about sea crops, they talk about Ogyges, they talk about the Ogygi, they talk about Phoroneos. Phoroneos is somebody I've never even mentioned in any of my videos, but we need to get into that history, because that goes back to the House of Anax. Oh man, I'm going to open up a can of worms with that. You guys know of it as they're mentioned as one of the races of giants called the Anakim. But Robert Graves, over a century ago, in his book, The White Goddess, goes into detail, in the Greek myths, he goes into detail about the Carian dynasties and how the House of Anax and the chieftains were called Anax, A-N-A-X. And this is why later Greek scholars took it as a matter of pride to rename themselves titles that reflected this ancient dynasty. This is why we have Anaxadrides, Anaximander, but Anax was the chieftain. This is not something that's just recorded in the Greek traditions. We have actual Anatolian tablet records from the Hittites that mention the Anax. So these in the Old Testament were called giants, the Anakim, from Anak, A-N-A-K, who was the son of Arba, this ancestral giant. But anyway, that's not really a tangent, because it's kind of related to the Age of Heroes and all that. But in 1687 BC, we had also, you guys are familiar that in 79 AD, Herculaneum and Pompeii were buried in pumice by Mount Vesuvius. What you probably don't know is that the Avellino eruption is widely known to archaeologists, and it too was equally devastating, because Pompeii and Herculaneum are not. They were later built on top of even older civilizations that had been buried the exact same way by Mount Vesuvius in the year 1687 BC. Scientists call it the Avellino eruption. And we've excavated structures and human skeletons that were all buried alive at that. History does repeat itself. But like Alan Vaughan said, history repeats itself, but with variations. So we have that's what we have for 1687 BC. As far as what I'm itemizing, you guys already know that have been with me for a while. I have whole videos on 1687 BC. This is just a small. I just wanted to get to some details to show you it was a dark age. Now, in the archaeological record, it can be verified that this period, that the old world didn't start waking up until 1645. I found this in just secular history books. 1645 BC is when all of a sudden Egypt seems to wake up. Ancient Mycenaeans, the Minoans, everybody starts waking up. Babylon has a second wind. They start waking up. Ancient India starts waking up. Everybody starts waking up. Literacy returns. It's slightly different now, but now things are different. These cataclysms and dark ages are the reason why ancient Egypt preserved information in different ways at different time periods. At one time, it was ossuaries. They reported that they recorded information in coffin texts, funerary texts, ossuaries. Then it was pyramid texts. There's all different. It's cataclysms are the reason why we have these differences in the ways that ancient cultures communicated. So we have the same thing with Minoan Linear A. Minoan Linear A would have developed further had not a cataclysm collapsed it, and the survivors who were less educated come back and created Minoan Linear B with slight modifications borrowed from exterior sources. It became, these morphed into the present alphabet we have today. So, this 25-year period of darkness is recorded not only for the Mediterranean, but archaeologists know that it was around 1645 BC that the ancient world that we're familiar with in our textbooks began at this time. And it's because a 25-year period of darkness, a 25-year period, a dark age caused by the Phoenix. Now, an almost return of the Vapor Canopy. But also I show in my published books and videos that this 25-year darkness and this 25-year dark age was also recorded in ancient South America for the exact same time. So I need something else to drink. Now, moving forward, let's see. Okay, I just want to see if I'm missing anything. I still got good audio. I go to running my mouth. Let's see. Anybody? Yeah, the Vapor Canopy is sick. Dan MC. Anybody give me a sound check? Anybody tell me I'm still good on audio? I'd hate to run through 20 minutes of video and find out y'all can't hear me. Good. Okay, good. That's all I need to see. All right. So, but we're not done with this dark age. 1687 BC. We have to address something else. 1687 BC was exactly 552 years after 2239 BC. I'm not gonna sit here and try to convince you guys that the Great Flood was in 2239 BC, the year 1656 Annus Mundi, by a totally different system. I don't have to. I have about 40 videos that show you that evidence and cite those sources, show you all the charts, do the math on math on the calculator. I've already beaten it up. There's no way I could prove it to you more than I already have in my published books and my articles, and especially in my videos. The Great Flood was 2239 BC in the month of May. Now, I've also cited the scientific documentation, a whole consortium of geologists, archaeologists, historians, botanists. All these people came together in 1998 and published their findings that around the year 2240 BC, the entire world died. Yeah, I didn't make that up. That's scientific. I cite those sources as well. Well, that's an approximate. 2240 is just 1 year away from 2239. It's a scientific bullseye. Remember, when scientists are dealing with chronological issues, they always say plus or minus 50 to 100 years. Or if it's way far back into some ridiculous ridiculous, made-up Freemason BS, they'll say plus or minus 100,000 years when they're talking about millions of years. Stupid stuff. So anyway, so we have this 552-year period, but the Great Flood wasn't an end to everybody. There wasn't just 8 people that survived. That's an old tradition. There were survivors all over the world. But just like 1687 BC had a dark age that lasted for a while, 25 years for the Mediterranean, most of the Mediterranean, like Egypt, not for Greece. Ancient Greece, it was 180-something years. Different areas of the world suffered in different ways. But after the Great Flood, we have a lot of evidence that the Dark Age was worldwide after the Great Flood. Literacy, infrastructures, urban planning, everything. People were just living hand to mouth for about 150 years. 150 years is a long time to live in stasis, to not develop. But that's what happened after the Great Flood. And this is why there's a lot of migrations. During that 150 years, there was a whole shift in demographics. Whole populations were vanishing. Others were moving. Some of them were taking over others and assimilating them. Others were just unifying because there was power in numbers. So it's interesting, man, that it was another dark age, about 150 years. But the biggest dark age, the greatest dark age this world has ever known, that we have in the historical record, is the one that started this calendar, the Phoenix calendar. Year 1 of the pre-flood world, year 1 of the Vapor Canopy period, 3895 BC. Also this year here. All these charts start 3895 BC. I've showed in my Great Pyramid videos that the timeline that's recorded in the Great Pyramid also begins 3895 BC. And I know there's a bunch of you that don't believe in the Great Pyramid being a calendar, and that's okay. But I'm more than willing to have you disbelieve that, because it just means that you're lazy and that you don't want to review the data, because the data is irrefutable. There isn't a single person in this world that can refute the data that's in my videos showing the scientific measurements of Sir Flinders Petrie and how they measure up against the actual events in recorded history. That the Great Pyramid must be some type of time capsule. It must be preserving the integrity of something. I don't know. But 3895 BC, the Phoenix chronology, which hits 3895 BC, is totally independent of this dude. This guy here, Stephen Jones, biblical chronologist, put together a fascinating book, Secrets of Time. Doesn't even know about the Phoenix, doesn't know anything about it. But 3895 BC plus 138 plus 138 plus 138, and just keep on going. You'll hit every single Phoenix date I have ever published in all my articles, videos, and books. 3895 BC was ground zero for the calendars of the ancient world. So, and in the book of Genesis, something happened so bad when a fiery flaming sword appeared that it created a new heavens and a new earth, and the survivors were convinced the whole world had done. But I've already shown the evidence too that a 930-year-old civilization was destroyed in 3895 BC in the month of May. So it was pretty much populated by the Adamu. This later became a pronoun to the Jewish scribes who invented the Adam and Chava story, or Adam and Eve story. The originals were in Babylon, and scholars have identified those because humans were basically called Adamu, and the Jews turned that into a pronoun. So the greatest dark age was after that event, because I am not the only researcher that believes a very technologically advanced civilization existed in those times way back then. But I am one of the only ones that have documented so much about that period chronologically. So we have a very interesting scenario after that. We have the appearance of a people, and I've documented this as well, that had button-down pants. They painted really well. The establishment wants us to believe that they're Cro-Magnons hundreds of thousands of years ago, 45,000 years ago. They want us to believe in Ice Age techniques and all this BS. But we get the impression of a people who are hiding in caves and rocks, exactly what the book of Revelation says the survivors will do. Hiding in caves and in the rocks until all the fallout is over with. And then the survivors come out and they build a new world, but it takes a long time. Their entire infrastructure has collapsed. This is what we have in the pre-flood world with the beginning of Genesis. In the beginning of Genesis and the antediluvian records, we have a period of almost absolutely no development for 400 years. For the first 400 years of the Genesis narrative, there's almost nothing happening at all. Then we have an astonishing amount of things happening in the book of Jubilees, the book of Jasher, Genesis, and in the Sumerian records. Not the Sumerian records as interpreted by Zechariah Sitchin, who mistook the Shars for years, but in the Sumerian records, as I have shown, where the Shars were turnings of the stars, where 432,000 Shars before the Great Flood was not 432,000 years, which is ridiculous for any amount of kings to rule. It was simply 432,000 turnings of the stellosphere, which was a day, which is what Genesis starts the timekeeping systems with. Genesis is very specific. The very first timekeeping system introduced to the pre-flood people was, and the evening and the morning was the first day, and the evening and the morning was the second day. Days, just like the Oralind Dutch manuscript says, in the old time, only days were counted. There are many, many references from historic texts that talk about the timekeeping system. This is how the Hindu calendar got out of control, because the Hindu scholars refuse to do the same thing other ancient cultures did do, like the Mayan and the Olmec. What did the Mayan do? They didn't say it was 144,000 years that made a Mayan Bacton. No, it was 144,000 days. This is why the Mayan calendar, which began in 3113 BC, is 1,872,000 days, which is perfectly divided into 13 Bactons of the Mayan. Each one of these Bactons, or 13 epochs of the Maya, is 144,000 days. These 144,000 days divided by the old pre-flood draconian calendar year of 360 days a year is just 400 years. It all makes perfect sense when you refactor this. So the evening and the morning being the first day. All Sumerian history fits into the pre-flood world, not the Zechariah Sitchin version, which sends kings ruling 432,000 years before the flood way back to 500,000 years ago. There isn't a single dynasty. There isn't a single king. There is no representatives from any infrastructure in the entire history of the world that would have any relevance to anything 500,000 years before. No culture, no language, linguistics, nothing. There are no traditions. There's nothing in a period of 500,000 years that would mean anything to anyone 500,000 years later. Zechariah Sitchin is full of shit. The translation is days. And when you do that, everything in Sumerian history matches up. In fact, when you retranslate all that to turnings of the stars, which is what Shar originally meant, was a unit of time, a single unit. Well, something very interesting happens, because in the book of Genesis, we have Enoch appearing 456 years, Annus Mundi, 456 years after this great 3895 BC cataclysm, the new heavens and new earth, the creation account of Genesis. Enoch appears in the Genesis narrative right then and there. But in the Sumerian record, when you translate everything in Sumerian as days and not years, at the exact year in history the Hebrews provided for the appearance of Enoch is the appearance of Enki. The exact same year. And I show this in all my videos and books. Enki and Enoch are one. Enoch is the Jewish rabbinical version created over 1,000 years after the Sumerian records were preserving the elements about Enki. So this benefactor appeared, and when he did, all of a sudden the world came out of its dark age. It came out of a 400-year-long dark age that was started with a Genesis creation event. And as many of you know, if you read the first verse of the Bible, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And in Hebrew, the syntax infers that this is an event that happened way before the second verse in the Bible. And the earth became formless and void, and the Spirit hovered over the waters of the deep, or whatever. There was a vast destruction that occurred between those events. And Genesis begins on the tail of that vast destruction. How do we know this is true? Because the very first command that the gods gave Adamu, the people, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And when you look up replenish in a Strong's Concordance, or like I have, from the 1890s, I have a Cruden's Concordance. When you look it up in the Cruden's Concordance, it still means to fill again. Meaning, let me shut this door. Meaning, the earth was once filled and now it's not. Now, many biblical scholars have found a correlate between the first chapter of Genesis and certain chapters. I believe it's Jeremiah chapter 4. They have shown the syntax is borrowed, that they're referring to the exact same event. And when you read how the Hebrew word is tohu wa bohu, I believe, which means formless and void, which implies a destructive event. The only time in the Old Testament those phrases are used is in Genesis chapter 1 to describe this great reset, and then in Jeremiah. And in the Jeremiah version, it goes even deeper, and it says the birds have fled from the sky and the cities are laid waste. Yes, our world was sophisticated, advanced, and it was populated, and it had infrastructures, and it was wiped out. The story of Adam and Eve is the religious cover story to mask what had really happened. The Dark Age lasted 400 years, and at the end of that Dark Age appeared Enki, remembered later as Enoch. This benefactor not only brought the agricultural and cereals, domestication of animals, brought linguistics and music, and brought all the elements of basically civilization. In the Vapor Canopy world, the pre-flood world, brought the world out of its dark age, was a benefactor, loved by many. He was basically elected to be the emperor. And in the book of Jasher, the whole story is given how he foretold what was going to happen, how he felt for the human race, and he knew he had to do something. At Akuzan, he built a structure and a monument to preserve something, to make sure that in the far future, the right information would be unveiled to the people. There's no reason to do that unless you're trying to break a cycle. So, and I go into all the details about the Great Pyramid, what is true function. You need to, for those of you who haven't, I have an entire playlist, the lost secrets of Giza, about the Great Pyramid, its true function, who built it, why they built it, what it's for. So, has everything to do with the Phoenix phenomenon. So, in discussing the Phoenix phenomenon, I want to another passage that we really need to see, and I really don't remember. Here it is, right here. Okay, for those of you confused about what the Phoenix is, and I'm sorry if I'm ignoring the chat, guys. I'm on a roll today. I wanted to get this video out about Phoenix for all my new subscribers and to put things into proper context for my veterans. So I'm sorry if I'm ignoring a lot of the chat. It just happens. I promise you, my next live is going to be questions and answers only. I just wanted to get some informative video. I wanted to get some Chronicon lives out because all my predictions on different nations have been slowing me down. All right, let's go with in 1945 was revealed a Gnostic text of the Nag Hammadi library. This text is called On the Origin of the World. This text of the Gnosis specifically names the phoenix and reads that it was a witness against the powers of darkness. Phoenix is a witness against the angels. Do you remember what I told you at the beginning of this video? Where the 138-year number appears in the historical record in the Moravian mythos, which records a Jewish legend that angels were basically cursed and forced and banished from heaven because they revealed about the coming destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and their punishment was to last 138 years. Too many coincidences exhibits no coincidence at all. So let's move on to Phoenix was a witness against the powers of darkness, a witness against the angels. Phoenix was appointed to remain until the consummation. Consummation is an end by destruction. Phoenix is a witness in the heavens, just as are the sun and moon. Remember in Genesis, the sun and the moon, the two great lights of the day of the sky, were to be witnesses. Therefore, Phoenix is associated to a celestial body. Phoenix appears as a sign to the world of what will occur at the end, when the sun will darken. This is the sixth seal. Remember, I've told you guys in other videos, the seven seals are not the apocalypse. The seven seals are required for the tetramorph. The seven seals are broken so the tetramorph can reveal what's going to happen in the future. The sixth seal is the sun darkening black as sackcloth of hair, the moon turning red as blood, rocks falling from the sky as an earthquake happens, and men and kings of the earth will hide in the mountains in fear. It's the Phoenix phenomenon. It's a bad one. So that's the sixth seal. Anyway, I just want to let y'all know, man. That's what the Phoenix is for. Phoenix is to keep the archons in check. That's what it does. The archons are rulers of time. They're the ones that are manipulating our calendars. But Phoenix is the keeper of the calendar. So now I'm going to give you a little present. I found some presents. Let's see. Okay. So, having understood this great dark age after 3895 BC, and coming out of the Dark Ages where we begin with the Anunnaki studies, the Anunnaki histories, and then how when you reinterpret them according to the way they were keeping time themselves and not the way Zecharia Sitchin said it, or old Hindu scholars who hyperinflated the hundreds of thousands, not from days and turnings of the stars, but to years. When you put everything into proper perspective, it all fits in a 900-year period right there before the flood, during the Vapor Canopy period. When you put things into their proper perspective, and you realize that the Dark Age happened during the Vapor Canopy. Then the flood collapsed the Vapor Canopy, which initiated another Dark Age. 552 years later, the world is teeming with people and civilizations. Infrastructure has returned. And now, 1687 BC, Phoenix returns, collapse all the infrastructures, new Dark Age appears. Again, happens all the way to 1195 BC. Everything's back. Civilization is back. Remember, it only takes 200 years to go from horse and buggy to Hadron Collider. Do you see the pattern here? Every time there's a dark age, there's just enough time for humans to get their infrastructure back, build cities, have this badass network, start developing technologies. Wham, they get hit again. The human race doesn't die, but their infrastructures are collapsed. So this is what happens. 1135 BC, another dark age, and this is why, and this is answering all the mysteries for like 1645 BC. historians have always been miffed. Like, why is it this period that all of a sudden all the ancient civilizations that we're familiar with seem to have started? Yet we know their histories go further back. It's because they don't know anything about the Phoenix phenomenon. Yes, all these cultures and civilizations go back, but they had to undergo fundamental changes, man, because they're being collapsed repetitively. It's a dark age cycle. And it happens again, 1135 BC. Coming up out of that, all of a sudden we have Hesiod, Homer, and Theognis. They start producing material. Then Aristophanes, Thucydides, and we can go all the way through the gamut to all these amazing Greek authors and writers. Herodotus of Halicarnassus put together his histories, which is absolutely packed full of information. Even Phoenix data that I've cited from Herodotus about 583 BC, when Thales of Miletus predicted the sun darkening in 583 BC. That was amazing. 552 years after the 1135 BC Dark Age of Phoenix, and 552 years before the Dark Age of Ancient America that collapsed the Olmec civilization in 31 BC, when a red sky dragon was seen over Egypt. During the Battle of Actium, when earthquakes destroyed Olympia, Greece, and Jerusalem. It all makes sense. Chronology answers all the enigmas of the ancient world. You just got to be able to sit down and go through the material, because it all fits together like an elaborate puzzle. It's beautiful. So, anyway, this is how these 4 statements. I'm going to read 4 different passages from the ancient world. Everything that I just mentioned to you about the Phoenix, these cycles. Now you understand why we have these references, these data points that I mentioned in the beginning of this video, because all these events are separated by 138-year periods, 276, 414, 552, 690, 966, 1104. All these are divisible by 138, 1242. Come on, guys, 1,380, 1656, 1,656, all of them. I think 1932. But anyway, all those numbers that I started this video out with are divisible by 138. Every event that I'm telling you right now is all on that 138-year timeline, for which I have all these charts that I showed you earlier. The charts and the links below. I have 350 charts in the links below, so in three separate links. I go into very great detail showing the chronology of our world has everything to do with the Phoenix phenomenon. Everything. So here's 4 statements from the ancient world that make sense now that we understand. We understand that the data points that I provided at the beginning of the video make sense. All these different civilizations and cultures knew. They just knew that something important happened 2070 years, 2760 years, 1242 years. Why Nostradamus said that. Why they knew 1656 years was the time between 2 cataclysms. They all knew. So, this is what Solon told Plato, and Plato recorded 25 centuries ago. Solon learned this from the Egyptian priests of Sais. When the gods purge the earth with a deluge of water, the survivors in your country are herdsmen and shepherds who dwell on the mountains. But those who, like you, live in the cities are carried by the rivers into the sea. Just when you and other nations are beginning to be provided with letters and with other prerequisites of civilized life, after the usual interval, the stream from heaven, like a pestilence, comes pouring down and leaves only those of you who are destitute of letters and education, so that you have to begin all over again like children who know nothing and what happened in ancient times. You remember a single deluge only, but there were many previous ones. You and your whole city are descended from a small seed or a remnant of them who survived. And this was unknown to you because for many generations, Dark Age, the survivors of the destruction died, leaving no written records. That is a profound statement. At the usual interval, what was Solon talking about? What was usual? Usual implies cyclical repetition. So let's move forward. That's one of the four. Let's go into the second one. Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Elder in natural history. This man, his source materials included 147 Roman writers and 327 foreign authors. His book, Natural History. And in the book, he made a very interesting statement. Pliny's penetrating study of history led him to conclude that throughout the span of human history, there has transpired ominous and long drawn-out eclipses of the sun, and that their cause was hidden by the rarity of their occurrence, and for this reason they were not understood. Pliny added that these strange darkenings of the sun were by natural but unknown causes, and that they occurred at fixed times. Sounds like after the usual interval. Pliny has whole sections in natural history that are dedicated to eclipses. He is not referring to an eclipse in this passage. He is referring to darkenings of the sun that happened over vast periods of time that are unknown because it takes so long for the next one to occur. No one knows what causes the phenomena. And normal eclipses only last minutes. Not like what Pliny's talking about. So, I read Lucretius's book from 54 BC. It's 7,400 lines of poem, but it's one of the most scientific books from the ancient world. Lucretius is awesome. Some of it's boring, but there are some gemstones in it. You can get it from Barnes and Noble today. But this is an actual 2000. This is actual 21st century old poem written by Lucretius. He wrote that the history of the world was one of earthquakes that caused entire cities with their citizens to sink to the bottom of the seas, and that the great flood that destroyed whole races of men was only one cataclysm in a cycle of quakes. But Lucretius' most incredible statement is that some unknown body, not the moon, passes over the sun and darkens the earth at a fixed time. You just can't make this stuff up, brothers. Quote number 4 comes from the Christian world. So, Arnobius, Christian apologist at Sicca in Africa in the 4th century. In the 4th century. This means it was only 16 centuries ago that he wrote this, but he's writing from the perspective of all this history that I've already covered. So his information is even more detailed. Sicca of Africa in the 4th century, in book 1, he wrote, this is a direct quote, "Ransack the records of history written in various languages, and you will find that all countries have often been desolated and deprived of their inhabitants. Every kind of crop is consumed and devoured by locusts and mice. Go through your own annals, and you will be taught by those plagues how often former ages were visited by them, and how often they were brought to the wretchedness of poverty. Cities shaken by powerful earthquakes totter to their destruction. What? Did not bygone days witness cities with their whole populations engulfed by huge rents that appeared in the earth?" What? That's a phoenix phenomenon. I've told you guys the phoenix phenomenon. The great trumpet sound appears from the sky. It is deafening. It shakes the ground, buildings, everything sinks into the ground like it's a liquid. All right. This is a remarkable passage because Arnobius infers here that even after all the book burnings of Carthage, Pontus, Asia Minor, Alexandria, Gaul, and Rome, by his day in the 4th century, there were still enough historical accounts preserved for him to have made this statement. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Okay, the data set that I began this video with is too specific, as I've told you many times. There is no way these numbers were random. I have shown now that they're not random. Every single one of them is divisible by 138, and that 138 is tied to ancient legends concerning the period between destructions. Now, I have shown also that these destructions all fit on a timeline of world history that is every 138 years. Did something happen every 138 years? Maybe. Do we have records for every 138 year visitation of the Phoenix? No, we don't. And we shouldn't, because that's what's happening. History's being scrubbed, it's being erased, records are being lost. The integrity of the historical record can't be maintained when there's something destroying it. The very fact that I have now documented 27 different dates of the old world up to 1902 when the Phoenix phenomenon occurred and what happened is profound. The very fact that I have 27 of them, that's profound. Especially when there's only 44 that we have since the Phoenix phenomenon began. So anyway, I'm gonna look at these chats. I don't want to sound too anticlimactic, but that sums up my video. All of that to show that this is a dark age cycle and that it's very well documented, but even more so that these numbers, these are data points. All those I mentioned, all those Phoenix numbers, they're just data points. But when you put them together, you have a data set. And that data set, as per this video and all my other research, is very well supported. Another series of data points is the fact, and I don't have anything with me right now. Well, it's not in this book. This is another book I wrote. It's not in this book, but this book is about the Great Pyramid. But I have hundreds of charts that show you the scientific linear measurements of the Great Pyramid. All the corridors, passages, everything, the dimensions, the angles, obliquities, everything in the Great Pyramid. And I show you how these measurements are divisible by 138. And then I just take those measurements and I overlay them over the linear projective calendar we have of 138 years. And I can go forward and backward in time and show you the Great Pyramid is mapping out all the Phoenix phenomenon dates all the way up to 2040. That's amazing. But remember what the Gnostic records on the Phoenix said. It said the Phoenix will last until the consummation. What's the consummation? That's a whole nother data set. But I've already showed it to you, because 138 years after 2040 is the year 2178. 2178, there's that number again. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you need to watch my video, The Archaics Paradox, because I show you that we did a computer simulation, James Knorr and I, and we ran the first 1 through 50,000, and we looked at every single number and we subtracted it from its own holoflective reflection. And when you do that, all numbers collapse to a zero. Some of them take a while because they first collapse to numbers that are divisible by 9, and then they collapse to 0. But 100% of all numbers in existence collapse to 0, except the number 2178, because 2178 becomes a reflective loop and does not collapse. So, and some of you are applying modern numerology, adding up all the digits to show me that 2 plus 1 plus 7 plus 8 equals 9 has nothing to do with the video. You're not paying attention to the video. You can do that with every number in existence. I'm not talking about that. We are looking at a phenomenon that is very unique. Something about the number 2178. And the fact that 2178 happens to be on the Phoenix timeline, this targets for me the consummation, because I already know it's 72 years after 2106. And I've shown you guys the Great Pyramid calendar ends in 2106, meaning that's the return of the chief cornerstone, the cornerstone that it does not possess today. But that's a whole nother series, that's a whole nother body of data. For all intents and purposes, that's the collapse of the simulacrum, 2178. because 2178 in our mathematical simulation shows, because it's an eternal number, it's a loop number, it's the only one that won't collapse. To me, that's interpreted as that is the only real number, and we can only see it because that's where our arithmetic, we exist within a sort of anti-arithmetic that is attached to a real universe, but we're not in it. We're in a pseudo-verse. We're in a false reality. So anyway, that sums up all that. Let me go over these real quick. We're hitting 3 hours. I'll answer a couple questions. Like I said, my next live is going to be nothing but Q&A. I have no agenda. I'm not going to come in there talking about anything. I'm doing straight Q&A on my next live, which is probably the day after tomorrow. I'm not sure. But this one, I wanted to get this video out on, because you guys got to know, man. I mean, you got to understand. We have to record things in data points, and we have to show how data points create data sets. This is very important. This is important because I told you from the very beginning of my channel, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And this is why I go into overkill on documenting everything that I document, because it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that anybody could have put this together. It would have only taken what I went through personally, which is many, many years in prison, with the free time to be able to do this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you smash that like button. I got 1,000 likes. Awesome. Hope you smash that like button, guys. And just remember, if you want to follow me more easily in future videos, thank you, NZ. If you want to follow me in more future videos, I got Chronicon in the link section. I got all 3 of my thumb drives. I'm still doing it. Those chart packs are necessary. There's a lot of charts in there. The charts I just showed you are nothing compared to the charts I got. You need to be able to, like, Saman just sent me an email yesterday with a bunch of pictures attached to it. I hit the pictures and looked. He took Chronicon, printed up all of them, put them in binders. They look so good. He's got everything organized. I was kind of jealous. He got his organized better than me. But yeah, he's doing the charts too. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. Leanne Oman, I'm going to answer your question even though it's not in capitals. Well, it's not a question. You're making a statement, but you put a question mark on it. Think of how many souls have been born in 5,916 years. You know what? I don't believe there's a single soul here more than what was started with. It's the exact same number of souls that are going to finish the simulacrum actually began it. And after every cataclysm, after every world war, after every epically terrible thing that happens to the human race, the very next thing that happens is a baby boom every single time. So, yeah, it's same amount of souls. And for those of you who don't know, thank you, Looney Man. That's a hell of a name. Listen, for those of you who don't know, the version of history that you're given, that there weren't metropolises that had 500,000 millions of people in them in historic times, is BS, because we find them all the time. A lot of them are unreported. The satellite imagery, and it doesn't matter if it's Halo drones taking the pictures, the aerial photographs of what lies under the jungles of Central and South America, whole infrastructure spanning miles and miles and miles. Millions of people lived in these places. Yeah, there has always been massive amounts of people in this world, but I'm going to tell you right now, my personal opinion is that there are not 7,000 billion, there are not 7 billion souls living in this world. Not the world that we know. No, there may be a lot of people in China, but there's no one in China that can ever prove that there's a billion people there. No. Our world is a hologram. And it's very easy to manufacture phenomena. It is very easy to fill our environments up with NPCs. And NPCs aren't just people. NPCs are also phenomena. It's very easy to do that. So this is a wonderful experience that we're having. It's great. We're going to have a lot of awesome memories about these times. There is nothing to be worried about or fear. Not even the Phoenix, not even the resets, none of that. It's all to be taken with stride. But that's the subject matter for other videos. This is not like a self-help. I'm not in the mood for that today. Today I'm more serious. I wanted to get all this information out, and I'm glad I was able to do it without referring too much to books, except for direct quotes. But I did miss a lot of data, and you guys know that. My veterans know. I could have went on and on and on 522, on 1135, 31 BC, 1687 BC. I have enough data for that to cover three 3-hour long videos. I'm very topical. I'm just barely hitting the surface. But you guys, it's been really great. What do you think about the lands? The thaw? I don't know about nothing about it. I don't know anything about there's nothing for me to read in the historical record about Antarctica, then there's nothing for me to know. Where am I going to get my data? From the internet? I can't do that. For those of you new to my channel, my veterans will tell you in the comment section that 100% of the Archaics data is from old books and reports. I will not ever cite the internet as a source. I can't. Not that there's not good information to be had on the internet, but I cannot compromise the integrity of my data with that. I just can't do it. So anyway, Emanuel Velikovsky, important to your research. Listen, he provided some pretty interesting things. Chronologically, he nailed the Exodus 1447 BC exact, the year 2448 Annus Mundi. But Velikovsky was valued to the Archaics research because of his sources. I did not like his conclusions on some matters because he seemed to be trying to force conclusions that made sense to him because he didn't have all the data I have. But he did cite Hans Boehringer, and he did cite Hans Bellamy, and those men really educated me, led me to Harold T. Wilkins and all kinds of people, Gerald Massey. So, I need some more coffee. So, my friends, it's been over 3 hours. Q&A is coming. I promise you. Probably day after tomorrow. We'll do over 3.5 hours. And I'm gonna be fully coffeeed up. I'm kind of tired today. I don't know if y'all noticed that or not. A little tired. I was just really feeling it. I wanted to get this video out today. So let's keep this short. Thank you for hey Wendy Flores. Thank you guys, Christine, and any of my other moderators. Lewis, if you want to moderate, Shiva, thank you. Lewis, if you want to moderate, hey, hit me up. I really don't know the etiquette between different channels. I'm not trying to step on Jay Dreamer. I like Jay Dreamer. I'm not trying to step on his toes. But yeah, I have like 10 moderators, but everybody's got different schedules. Okay, guys. Hey, I love you guys, and I'm gonna relax the rest of the day, and I'm gonna hit you up later. Let me turn this off if I can find a way.